Dave, come to this meeting. Dave, Snyder.
All right, we're going to call the meeting to order, 6 o'clock. We have a roll call.
Ms. Howe?
Here.
Ms. Butler-Challenger here. Mr. Wisswasser?
Here.
Mr. Almarigi?
Here.
Mr. Benzie?
Here.
Mr. Fuensquist?
Here.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Here.
Thank you.
For those of you who have an agenda, item 2, which is our civil reflection, we're going to have a pledge of allegiance and then a moment of silence. I
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we have an approval of agenda. However, I have 2 amendments, so I don't know if anybody else does. Okay, my amendments are going to be that we move items B, well, actually 14, large B, small b to 6. And that would be the resolution honoring our high school basketball team. So I'd like to move that to 6. And the second motion that I have would be 13, large b, small d, to remove it.
I'll second that.
Yes, that was my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we need
Mr. Fuensquist?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Benzie?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
yes.
Ms. Butler-Challenger, yes. Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, number 4 is the disclosure of conflict of interest. Do we have anybody? All right, doesn't appear to be any. So we'll go to our first public statement. I should remind them to turn the phones off. Meg, thank you.
I'll have one, please. Wow, what a great turnout. 3 things that I just wanted to mention this evening. Number 1, under unfinished business, B, capital B, small case A, it's listed under police and fire protection, millage renewal and or increase. I read the information in the agenda, and as much as I am with everyone else in this town, feel about my beloved police and fire, I have to let you know that if this were any organization, I would be up here speaking saying, please don't do this. Don't raise it any more. Between groceries and my power bill and taxes, I'm at my limit. I can't afford another increase in taxes. That's just crazy. I'm sorry. I'm Meg Richie. From Outer Drive. Okay, number 2, the Park Lakes apartment homes. I am trying to quickly get through this so that I don't expand my 3 minutes, so that all these handsome young men can get up here and say what they want to. The Park Lake Homes special use permit. gotta say, I'm gonna have to say, please don't do that as well. I am under the impression, kind of hearsay type knowledge, that this was actually supposed to be condos and not apartments under the first agreement of it. I don't know that to be true, but I am asking, please don't do that. The green space that's there is so minimal for folks to play with their children and their pets. To cram another two more apartment buildings in that small area. It is their property, they can do what they want, but I guess it's up to you to deal out what's fair for everyone in the community that has to go by rules and regulations. Number 3 that was blatantly not on the agenda was the ADA, the American Disabilities Open Meeting Act, Bath Township Ordinance. That is not on the agenda, and I would hate to see it fall by the wayside because of disagreements on people either from people not wanting to be accountable for their own part in what they spend for the people of our community, and things that just aren't really important. Be accountable for what you do, tell us what it's going to cost, and I'm sure we'll all be fine with paying for it. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mary. Is there anybody else?
As usual.
That's my line.
Ray Kotke, Park Lake Road, Bath, Michigan. I want to speak about unfinished business. The Park Lake non-motorized trail. I understood that all of these people are here in support of that. Maybe I'm wrong. What I would like to see, and Karen, if on your superintendent's report, item 15, if you're going to report on that, then I'll stay for it. Other than that, I just want to say that on June 6th, Friends of Park Lake, I'm the treasurer of Friends of Park Lake nonprofit organization, and we're having a family bike ride on June 6th. And we want to take some of the children down to look at the water control structure. They've expressed some interest in that. And I have brought up innumerable times about a circuit court ruling that said that Webster Road is a public road and as such is open to the public to use to go all the way around to the Park Lake Trail, which some of you may not know, but is at the extreme southern end of Webster Road. As of this date, today, I checked again, the sign that the Clinton County Legal Counsel that I had a conversation with clearly stated that it was illegally placed there, is still there. In October, I brought that up to the powers that be, if you will, Clinton County Road Commission, the township, and they said, yes, it's there illegally, the sign needs to be taken out. And the reason I'm bringing this up again is because I have had more calls from the public asking, well, can we go down there because it says private road and, you know, there's a cable across the road. Can we walk down there? Yes, you can walk down there. It's open to the public. It's open to the residents of Bath Township. But as of this date, the sign is still there. And I just don't understand, what do the citizens of Bath have to do to get a circuit court ruling that was made into law in 1958 to be upheld and have that sign taken down and to have the cable that's across the road taken out? When I placed, some of you are subscribed to our Facebook page, Friends of Park Lake. when I placed the information, if you will, about the upcoming Park Lake Trail, the non-motorized trail around the back of the lake, we had over 10,000 hits, and we had over 1,200 likes on that subject. The last time I checked, Brenda, we had about 9,600 registered voters, I think, in Bath Township. Well, I tell you what, you guys are all elected, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you ran for these positions. If I was running for a position and I had a potential to garner 10% of the voting public's approval on a project, I certainly would get behind that project. And this unfinished business is such a nebulous term on this agenda. It's like we only get to hear what you guys want us to hear. What I'd like to see you guys do is to put on there the Park Lake Trail as unfinished business, because let me tell you, it's been unfinished business since about 2014, and that's a long time to be unfinished. So I'd like to see you guys, instead of sitting on the fence and not saying anything and don't open that can of worms, let sleeping dogs lie, get behind it. People, the community, they want to see this non-motorized trail where they can go for a walk, with their kids and see nature. Get behind it, endorse it, put it under unfinished business so that at least maybe once a month, you guys have meetings twice a month. Let's get a report on what's going on. Let's get a report on whether or not the environmental study came through. Are we getting the easement talks with Oak Island? If not, I may be able to help. I've been doing this stuff for a long time. But anyway, I wanted to voice my concerns and see if we can maybe get you guys behind this. Thank you. Oh, one other thing. I respectfully disagree with Meg, although none of us like raising taxes. None of us like paying taxes, period. But you guys can't keep taking out of that general fund to fund police and fire. I suggest strongly that you get behind it now, raise it a little bit, just a little, at least certainly renew it, but I would suggest raising it. And I'll throw in my $20 a year, whatever that's going to be on an incremental raise, because nobody likes to not have a good fire department, and nobody likes to have a second-class police department. And it takes money to fund those things. And being that we are a community that had the worst tragedy ever in American history here to our children, we don't want to have something like that happen again. And I think to prevent that, you need a really strong police force and public safety, fire department, and the like. So don't skimp on that. Don't skimp on that. Thank you.
Will Tyler White, Main Street, Bath. I second Mr. Kotke's remonstrations about the gate and the sign. What's it take is call up the Department of Public Works tomorrow and say, hey, go pull the sign down, get rid of that cable. Or call the Park Lake guys, they'll do it for you. It's simple. Anyway, what I came to speak about is this Bath Broadband update that's on the agenda. I have 3 questions there. First of all, what happened to the Broadband Task Force? 15 residents and 4 staff members met for 3 months last year and come up with the recommendations. In June, we had a prospective draft of the strategic plan for this board. And all of a sudden, they stopped having meetings, and in October, got an email from Trustee Al Marigi that this effort is moving forward, but he's asked a smaller group to provide guidance on finalizing the last set of recommendations. And in the next couple of weeks, you'll have an opportunity to see a draft report of our work and an opportunity to clarify and provide guidance. That was 6 months ago. I haven't seen anything. And the other question is, can one trustee by himself reorganize a committee, take it over, and make decisions like spend $25,000 on a survey without violating the Open Meetings Act? Where are the minutes from these meetings? When was that decision made? What's in that contract? And so my question is, what's happened with this broadband task force, and why isn't that final report done? So I got a copy of that draft report. I'd be happy to email it to anybody that would like to see it. And I'll leave a copy here with it. Staff, if you'd like to put it in the minutes, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. White, the clerk needs one in order to put it in the minutes. Oh, is that, okay.
Here's another copy.
There you go. All right, is there anybody else with public comment?
Hello, Dean Balzer, Park Lake Road. I agree with Ray. You need to settle the trail. I say don't build it. Takes money to build it. Takes money to maintain it. Taxes are too damn high. Thank you.
That's great. Is there anybody else? All right. Is there any, I don't see anybody, but that doesn't mean anything from.
Yeah.
Our item 6 from our
Yes.
county, state, federal, or other.
Right here.
entities. Just one. Thank you, one.
Good evening, Dwight Washington, Clark Road, Bath, Michigan, and Clinton County Commissioner. I have a really shorter report today to give. I can't even read my own writing here. But one, this may address Mr. White's comment. One of the things that's going on is the broadband, and we're actually supposed to get a report at the end of the month in terms of a roadmap and ideas of how we want to proceed with this. But we've also found that with the state and with the ARP money, American Recovery Plan money that goes to broadband, there's a lot of moving pieces, and we're trying to figure out what the best strategy is. And at this point in time, it's just kind of, even with the federal government, it's kind of unclear how that money's going to trickle down. So I'm not it seems from the county point of view, or at least my point of view, the county, that it does seem to be a little bit premature to start making these solid decisions, because things are still being shaken up, and they're really looking at it as a last mile, but they're also looking at how to serve the most people for the best amount of money, for the least amount of money, and so that's kind of where we are at this point with that. I also wanted to report that we signed a contract with the Greater Lansing Regional Committee for stormwater septic systems, with the Clean Water Act. And what that's going to do is it's going to move us into phase 2 of the Clean Water Act, which looks at non-point solutions, non-point sources. So what's happened in the past is the point sources, like the storm drains, people's homes, and that give that direct contact to the water system, then that's what they've been working on cleaning up. And so now they're going to start looking at the non-point source pollutions, where it doesn't exactly directly go into it, but it may seep from your fertilizer, or it may seep from buildings into the water structure. So that's kind of where they're looking at now. And this goes along with the constant efforts of PFAS that they're looking at to address. And they've found another one of those over by the airport, and the federal government and the state are monitoring that closely. The third thing that I wanted to say is that it was actually a rather emotional day with our sheriff retiring and our undersheriff retiring, and the two of them have been with Clinton County, the undersheriff has been with Clinton County for a very long time, and the sheriff came from DeWitt, who's been in the county for a long time, but as a DeWitt County police chief, and they've both retired and have been replaced by Sean Dush. And he worked with he was with the Clinton County Sheriff's Department, and he took Mike Gutt, who was a DeWitt Township police chief. And so those would be the two people who will be heading the Sheriff Department now. I wanted to lastly say that It's been a trying 2 years for the health department, and they are at the point where they don't feel that they have to mention COVID at every meeting or discussion, and are really beginning to look at some of the other services that they provide. One of them, although that's not entirely, I did bring a box of these for the office here, and the public health department is passing them out so people can test themselves for COVID. But they're also beginning to look at other things that they can do. Unfortunately, that's still more bad news because it came to Avian Flu, which is like going around the country right now. And there is a concern that the large migratory birds could be transporting that. And so, not an official discussion, but a side discussion I'd had with the health officer indicated that she was concerned because of our parks, lake, beach, and the geese that are there. So not only is it the E. coli in the water, but we also have to be concerned about E. coli in the soil and the flus that may be attached to that. But I'm happy to announce, though, that the Friends of Park Lake and the Park Lake Advisory Committee are really taking an active approach that I'm aware of to looking at what can they do to keep the geese off the beach. But it does seem to be a safety concern that hopefully we'll be ahead of this year and be able to deter the closing of the beach. That's my report. Any questions? I appreciate your time and your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that update. Is there any other state agency or county, other agency? Doesn't seem to be. All right, the next agenda item that we have is the resolution. Have you all had a chance to read the resolution? It was in the, okay. You had a chance to. So we're going to vote on that resolution, which is here. And when we get done voting, whether we accept or reject, you'll need to sign. So I have, okay, so that you'll be able to sign it while you're here. All right, so we need a record roll call vote. Well, do I need a motion? Maybe I better do it that way.
I move approval of the resolution as presented.
Second.
What? Good job. All right, we got two. All right. We have a second, so now we have a vote.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay, that resolution then is passed, and what I've got here, I've put a sign, I'm gonna present it. Now, they're gonna need to sign it, so the presentation will come after they've had an opportunity to sign, which is what officially needs to be done so that you all will be recognized as you should, which is greatly appreciated, to say the least. So we'll take a minute.
Same color ink for
No,
everybody?
Oh, no,
it's right pen.
Listen,
Pass the pen.
Maria, are you going to read the resolution?
that was something that, yes, I had it down to read. So if that's something you'd like to have, then we'll read it right off the. Yes. The coach was a huge help on this, so you guys know.
Got to know each other.
Thank you, Ryan.
You're a helper.
Hope you sign the back, it's
If you hear this vibrating, let me know.
Okay.
Oh, I don't feel too good. Whoa, 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 whoa,
Mine's
whoa.
blue. Is that blue?
Use the same pen.
That's black. Black instead of blue. Oh, yeah, blue. All right. All right, we'll put it in.
That's upside
Okay,
down.
Coach. We're gonna put you in the front. All right. Whoops, that's got, you can take that out, it's got a piece of paper in it, so.
That's fine.
Okay.
That fits us.
That fit you guys? All right, now what I like to do is, not only will I read this so that you know, but I want those coaches to stand or at least raise their hand if they're already standing, and the same with the players, once your name is called. If I mess it up, please correct it. All right, it says a resolution by the Bath Charter Township Board of Trustees honoring the 2021-22 Bath High School basketball team. Whereas Bath Charter Township Board of Trustees wishes to acknowledge that the Bath High School basketball team for their outstanding achievements during their 21-22 season. And whereas they finished as a runner-up in the Central Michigan Athletic Conference, the CMAC. Whereas the team went on to win their district championship, and the team also went on to win the regional championship. Whereas they continued to a winning streak, advancing to the Division III quarterfinals after facing a number of injuries along with coronavirus. And whereas the team's persistence, dedication, and skills and beliefs in themselves resulted in a season with exemplary accomplishments and a significant source of community pride. Whereas it was the Bath high school basketball team's deepest tournament since 2007, with a record of 17-7 win and losses. Thank you, Ryan. He did some nice correcting for me. Season, and whereas in addition to the success, the Bath senior Ethan Swinson received an all-state honors by being named to the second team in the Division III. Now it be resolved that the Bath Township Board of Trustees, congratulations to the Bath High School coach, thank you, Coach, Gates Sola, thank you, along with the assistant coaches, which include Nick Dufo there, Shane Lorenz, who's not here, Dallin Parks, who's not here, Jeff Schaefer, thank you, and team members, Ethan Swinson, thank you, Ethan, remain standing, please. Yes, Devon Chandler, who's not here, okay, Aiden Knowles, okay, Luca Moore, did I say it correctly? And Miles Jonas, Ryan Knitter, Josh Cares, thank you, Gavin Briggins, Chase Van Esses, who's not here, Jaden Perez, Grant Dunkel, thank you, Colin Kuhn, sorry, Colin, messed it up. That's okay. And Jacob Alpine. On a very successful season. Thank you guys, greatly appreciate it. You made Thank you ever so much. This resolution was introduced and passed by the Bath Charter Township Board of Trustees on May 2nd. You're more than welcome. Thank you guys. Jason Almerigi, Joe Benzie, Steve Wiswasser, Linda, she's our clerk, and of course Al and Ryan. Yeah. So thank you. Greatly appreciate it. Sure. Do you want? Put the key. Get the team, come on. Get the team.
At least we won't get our picture in it.
Not enough room for all of us in there. There's not enough room for all of us in there. Do you need us to move, Taylor?
You want us to move?
Right now. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay. One of those has to be good.
One of those has to be good. All right. Thank you again. Oh, yeah, you guys, out the door.
Thank you.
Coach wants a box.
Well, we're down to 4. Down to 3.
There you go. Doesn't take much to empty this room, did it? All right, we are now at consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I've got a thing I want to pull.
Oh, sorry.
No one, sorry, just, Joe was real quick today. The Housing Commission minutes.
Oh, the minutes?
Yes, please.
You want to take those off?
Please.
Just off, or do you want to move someplace else?
I want to discuss them, and I can't discuss them here, so.
Yeah, I'll make my motion to take off the housing commission minutes.
No discussion, right?
I'm sorry?
No discussion.
No discussion?
He didn't want to discuss it.
We can't discuss here.
No, where do you want it? Where do you
Where do you want
Oh,
it?
it doesn't matter. I mean, we can talk about it right after this if we want to.
Okay. Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do you want to discuss it now? or-
Sure, is that okay with you?
Sure, go ahead.
I had two questions. I'll take the easiest first. Under the minutes here in new business, there's two places where there's a question mark rather than a person's name. And I don't usually nitpick other people's minutes, but as I was reviewing them to get an update, it did seem odd that there was, somebody seconded it, we just didn't know who. So I don't know if they want to redo that. Again, it's not keeping me up at night, but it was something I noticed.
You
And-
said there were two places.
Yep, so both
That's
in
one.
new business, there's two places where there was a motion seconded by question mark.
Oh, I got it, I got it.
Business.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then my other question is for you, Marie. Under public comment, it says that you stated Township Board has agreed to make payment for 2021, and I just forgot what that was about.
That had to do with treasurer. They made their payments that were due, their stipend. How much is it?
They have not made their
They
payment.
have
To
not made.
my opinion is they have not. Myself and county treasurer have talked about that.
Okay,
The only payment in lieu of taxes you've gotten so far is from the Hawks Ridge community over here on the other side of the
okay.
freeway.
So 2020 is what their last,
There's always a problem with that, and they seem to deal with the fact that the taxes are collected in the rear. They may be talking about that, as far as what they did last year for 21, or it was for 20. But I know of no payment that's been made, no paperwork has been filled out, a special paperwork to be filled out. I've had no conversation with anybody from there over this matter. So I don't know where, Mrs. Hall got her information
I got that
from.
information.
It didn't come to me, because I haven't had any conversation with anybody other than the county treasurer who wants to know where the money is.
no, it was no private conversation. It was
No, she
conversation.
didn't listen to me. I said, other than
Okay.
the county treasurer who wants to know where the money is, or if I've seen the report. Oftentimes it's June before you do see it, if they're having a problem. But we haven't been contacted by them. The only way you can waive their fee for the year is if the township board votes to do so. Did that in the past 1 or 2 times since I've been here. I think they paid last time, I'm not sure. I haven't looked at it.
So that needs to be looked at, whether that was a typo or whether it was a mistake.
Okay.
Okay.
I also have a question. Under 9, old business part B, partnering with Ingham County, Leo has concerns with paying for service and cost. And the second part was, piqued my curiosity, also who hires the executive director, the board of Ingham County? Can you explain what's going on here?
Yeah, they had someone come in on the Ingham County to discuss, remember I had talked about whether or not they were going to allow it to go to another entity. Ingham County came in and gave their spiel as to accepting them. And I think that's where that came from, because they are trying to decide whether or not they want to stay and retire in 2 years. So at that time, there's going to be a change, whether it's going to be a huge change because she's going to be retiring, or a change that deals with them going with someone else, which is something we'll have to
Isn't
look
the
at.
decision ours to make regarding that?
No, our decision is the land. Whether or not they, as a federal program, go to someone else is another issue. Because we own the land, that's our connection, that's our thread.
We also appoint the board.
We
We also
appoint the
hire
board.
the executive
Yes.
director.
Yes, that's the federal. Yeah.
It seems that we should look into this as to roles and responsibilities.
Because it is a federal program.
It's federally funded, but it was
Yes.
it's an entity of
Yeah.
the
What-
township.
What you're looking at is, what's the township's role?
Correct.
Okay. No, got it. Okay. Is there anything else? You good? All right. You have the approval of minutes?
I'll approve the minutes of the regular Board of Trustee meetings of April 18th, of April 18th as presented.
Second.
Mr. Bensy?
Yes,
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Mr. Felix Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, number 9 on your agenda is the approval of vouchers. And this will be one of the only times that you do this, correct? April 18th, as well as May 2nd.
You asking me?
Yes, I am.
My understanding is, last, 2 weeks ago on Monday, the 18th, I believe it was, I was not present in the board meeting. I had a family issue to take care of, my father. And the vouchers did not get approved. I rectified this situation when I got back on Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever day I came back. And I actually put the deputy treasurer in charge of printing the report so that the vouchers could be approved, because there's really no reason that we don't vote on the vouchers if I'm not here, because the board approves them. It has nothing to do with me, it's just I provide the report. So I had my office and my deputy treasurer do this, so you'll no longer have this. So you're gonna approve tonight the April 18th vouchers that you didn't approve last meeting 2 weeks ago, as well as tonight's meeting on May 2nd.
All right, do you want to take them one at a time, or do you want to take it all at once?
Take it all at once.
Got it.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers of April 18th and May 2nd.
Second?
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Bensy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 10, which is the treasurer report.
Madam Supervisor and the Board of Trustees, not to make an excuse, but I don't have a treasurer's report for you tonight. I had high intentions of having that, but I'm going to give you somewhat of a verbal report. My reason for not having a treasurer's report tonight, some of you may and some of you may not know, I'm finding out that not everybody does know this, realize this, but my father passed away yesterday. And I've been a little bit occupied with details of that. I will say about the treasurer's report, what I was going to report to you on, in reference to, he was going to get an investment report for the first quarter of 2022. And I will make mention that you're going to see a significant change coming here from the way it looks to me from the investment standpoints on our invested money, because interest rates are on the rise. We are making more money. On April 1st, or the last day of March, I did take and open up a CD with Huntington Bank. I didn't open up a CD, excuse me, I bought a treasury note with Huntington Bank for $1 million, which will create over the next year, 2 years, will create roughly $40,000 in interest for the township. It's a 2-year note, and that was the best bang for the buck for us right now. Cities and villages and whatnot, a lot of them are buying 5-year notes. They could buy them at 3%. But this is a good thing for us, because we desperately need interest income with the rates we've had, with what we're limited to what we can invest in. Treasury note is a great thing, because the treasury note provides interest. We'll get coupons on that twice a year, the way this one's set up. And so we'll realize, in the first year, we're gonna realize about $20,000, a little over $20,000, $24,000. And then in the next 2 years, the second year, we'll realize the bulk of it. We'll get almost $40,000 in the second year alone, because of the combination of 2 years worth of interest. Because we bought it in the time of the year we did in April, that's why it's gonna be staggered a little bit. That'll make a big difference in income, interest income here at the township, as well as our other investments and CDs that are coming due this month. That we're gonna ladder them out, and we're gonna experience some higher rates. You're actually, the treasury note and the treasury market, the market has went up by even more so. I probably pulled the trigger a little too fast. I pulled the trigger at 2.5. If I'd have waited, we could have got a 2.7. I believe it was 2.76 this last week. I was told today in a meeting with the superintendent, and I was in Baker Tilly, and we talked about the sewer bonding and the funding for that, and these treasury notes follow that, interest rates for that stuff pretty closely, and you're gonna be looking at, right now, at a 3% number, and by this time next year, predicting a 5% number for our bonding. So we're gonna borrow money, we're gonna be paying 5%. It's a double-edged sword. We'll actually earn more interest on our money we have invested, if we have it laddered correctly, which we do, but you're also, if you guys are gonna borrow money, you're gonna wanna be getting around and getting that done, which we're in the process of doing that for the sewer system, because the rates are gonna go up. I have all this stuff documented. I didn't want to put it halfway there today. I had a lot of loose ends to tie up with my personal issues with my father, but I will have it for your next meeting. That's all I have for a treasury report.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 11, which is our committee appointments. This particular appointment, Leslie or Les Hayden, was the one that there was a problem because his application was met. His application was met. So that is included in this packet for his application. And Jeannie, interesting enough, was one of the original, original of the two that they were expanding. Apparently, at this point, they don't need to expand because she's taking Cheryl Murphy's place. Cheryl Murphy has decided that she doesn't want to be on the committee anymore. So Jeannie is taking her place, which her term will end December 31st of 2024, because she is completing and finishing Cheryl Murphy's position. So these two, as you've seen, are applications that have been, and they also have been checked for their signatures. So they're good. They vote. They're with the state. So if there's any other questions, please feel free. Otherwise, we'll vote on them.
And we had a motion.
I need a motion. No motion? So either one of them.
I'll make the motion. I don't have a problem with my motion, but is there a problem with these appointments that should be discussed? I don't see one.
That's,
Do you want to do them together or separate?
one is for the Recreation Advisory Committee and the other is the Parkway.
So I'll make a motion to put Leslie Hayden on the Recreational Advisory Committee with the term expiring December 31st, 2024.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Mr. Keeling-Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Okay.
So I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to put Jeannie on the Park Lake Advisory Board with the term that expires on December 31st of 2024.
Second.
I got a question. I don't see anything that showed that she is leaving. She just told somebody? We're supposed to be in
Yes.
writing, isn't it?
Well, she mentioned it to her chair and said she.
Yeah, but you're supposed to
You
still
want
put it,
something in writing?
isn't
Okay.
that the way we're supposed to do on all of these?
I
is
don't
when
know if
somebody-
it's a procedure, but if that's,
Generally, they notify their chair, and the chair will notify the supervisor.
Oh, okay. The committee I was on,
I believe the process.
they had to do it in writing, but that's, all right, that's the
I
way.
think he did, he notified her in writing.
he
All
put
right.
an email stating that, because I think I
Okay.
gave that to Brenda. Didn't I? I don't know.
I've
I
seen
have
it.
it.
I've seen it.
Okay, I
Thank
was
you.
gonna say I have
Yeah.
it. He states that they no longer need to have, this is why I removed it, because they no longer need to expand
Yeah,
their committee because she's going to be taking over, so now they have a proper number. They have 7. So is yours the motion?
yeah.
Okay, so we need a second?
Oh, no, it's,
No,
Oh, Joe, I'm sorry. Joe made a
Joe.
motion.
yeah, you get us mixed up all the time.
All the time.
Steve seconded it.
He did second. Thank you, Steve. You don't do that very often.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Mr. Keeling-Lewis?
Yes.
That's exactly what you-
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes.
All right. Township Committee reports, item 12. That's the broadband update.
First, I want to thank Mr. Woolwhite for his eagle-eye attention to this. He had posted similar questions to Facebook, which I had addressed, but I'm glad he brought it up here. It was good timing. So right now, and he's right in a number of factors. I did send an email saying that there would be an update with recommendations. I got sidetracked with Say Across the School. And then we got engaged in survey development. And so where things are right now, there's a lot of different things going on. We've seen some emails from our supervisor in terms of county broadband meetings. I've attended some meetings. So we've closed our survey, so we did our own survey. We got really good response rates. Got about, I think, 750 residents who completed the survey. Public sector consultants, has indicated that we have good representation. They're doing their analyses right now on the results of that survey. What I indicated to Mr. Will White on Facebook is that as we engaged in the survey, I thought it prudent that we create recommendations from the committee with the survey results in hand, so that we can be a little bit more detailed in our set of recommendations. At the same time, there's all sorts of work going on at the county. So the county did their own survey. The county also has hired Guidehouse, a consulting firm, to provide expert consultation. They're looking to spend, I misquote the number, but it's something around $12 or $23 million on a fiber-only solution. One of the interesting things about their survey is, and the additional work, they pulled data from speed tests, I think the Ookla speed tests, and then they conducted an economic analysis to look at what kind of economic losses our communities have faced with inadequate broadband. And so 2 areas that they identified as priorities are Northern Bath and Victor Township. And that's in terms of, I think, population density and what the Treasury, U.S. Treasury refers to as underserved or unserved. These are a bit different from FCC definitions. I believe unserved is wired broadband less than 25 megabits per second, and then underserved is broadband under 100 megabits. So what's going on now is that the county is seeking partnerships with the townships, looking to leverage ARPA funds to see if there can be a collaboration or the pooling of funds to address the issue countywide. And I believe our supervisor has attended a recent meeting related to that. This week, Friday, I have an exploratory meeting, and I hope that Karen and Miles can join me in Victor Township to just meet and have a conversation about what our mutual needs are. They also did their own survey. So we're looking to potentially pool data and come up with some ideas about how and whether we can move forward in a partnership, or how we can perhaps approach the county in a unified way. I don't know where that's going to go with that conversation, but that's, again, it's an exploratory conversation to gather more information. So the work does move forward slowly, but as Commissioner Washington indicated, it is a complex landscape in terms of federal and state resources. It's only been recently that the state has staffed their high-speed internet broadband office. I'm forgetting the name. And what that means is now that it has staffing, they can actually do the work. And so again, we're doing that. Once we get the survey results back, I'd like to call back the full committee to have a conversation about the data, and then revisit those recommendations to see what might have shifted in the time since we last met back in October as a small group. And that small group was as you remember, we had work groups within it, and we had chairs or sub-chairs for each of those work groups. It was those chairs that met on behalf of the rest of the committee. So that's where we are. It's not, I think we all in the community would like to see broadband, high-speed internet improved yesterday. But again, this is complex work, and we're doing our best moving forward. Any questions? And the one other thing that I'd like to add is that the approach that I think we as a community and the county has had is that, I know for us, the township, is that we want to position ourselves to leverage grant funds as much as possible, so that we're not paying for broadband infrastructure out of our township budget. We're making use of dollars from the federal government and state if they come available. So that's been our orientation, keeping an eye on a frugal eye, and it's being a steward of her funds.
Okay, any questions? All right, we're going to move on, thank you very much for that update, to number 13, unfinished business. A, large A, says items for reduction, discussion, and resolution immediately. Large B, items for action. We have a resolution to adopt police and fire millage. So Superintendent and Trustee Bliss, I think you're.
I would offer him the opportunity, and I know that Trustee Elmery had shared some data which is in front of you all tonight, so I would welcome Don to start off the discussion.
I think you all have seen that the superintendent's recommendation over the last few months has been to renew the police and fire millage, from what I've picked up from her comments in our board meetings, for sort of a lack of indication from this board in a mutual way on doing anything else. So I wanted to make sure we had an opportunity to talk about increasing as well. So you've seen the memo that I put together, which was based off from the language that Karen had put together in previous packets. My recommendation is that we ask for 2 separate millages on the August election. One, a full renewal of our 3 mills, and the second, a increase of 1 mill. So a new millage of 1 mill is functionally what it looks like. That new 1 mill increase would garner us approximately $480,000 of new revenue to support our police and fire departments. I've shared the math with you in the memo, so I don't want to read to you. I know you all have looked it over, but basically, the superintendent and I sat to discuss the budget from this year to try to determine, of the $1 million general fund we moved into police and fire, or public safety, how much of that was one time? Do we need to continue moving $1 million every year? And it came out to be, there was about $250,000-ish in there that were one-time things in our general budget. And so that's not necessarily something that we will need to continue doing, which would move what we're pulling out of fund balance to be about $750,000. Early estimates, we haven't seen the audit yet, but early estimates show that we'll put about $250,000 in the public safety fund back into the fund balance. So that,
It stays with the public safety fund.
that's what I said.
Okay.
Back into the fund balance of the public safety fund.
I'm sorry.
Yes. So that brings us to about $500,000 is sort of accounted for in other ways. So in order to make up that other $500,000, 1 mill would get us there, increasing to just about that amount. Now, no one can predict the future, so there's going to be a little plus and minus worked out in here, so I don't want to purport that this would be a perfect 1-to-1 ratio. We wouldn't pull money from anywhere and we wouldn't put money anywhere. Again, but in general, this would make us mostly whole in terms of how much money we've been transferring over. I think, based on some of the public feedback that we also heard today, it makes sense to do this now rather than later. It certainly will hurt a little bit now, but the longer we wait, it's going to hurt more and more. That's how we've gotten ourselves in this situation. We haven't raised it since, I understand, the 80s. Meanwhile, the staffing has gone up, the runs have gone up, the need has gone up, and we haven't necessarily kept pace with the small amount of increase that we've seen over the course of the police and fire millage due to further development in the community. I'll remind you that the police and fire board voted to increase, suggested we should increase. They did not name a number. They let us do that. And while the Planning Commission did not vote on it as well, they did give feedback to me at the last meeting, overwhelmingly, universally supporting an increase as well. So that led me to put together this memo for all of you so that we at least had something to chew on. I think it's hard to say just renew or something else. So I wanted to put together a thoughtful piece that was just renew or renew and increase by 1 mil. Obviously, we could do anything under the sun with all of this, but I wanted you to see the data and saw the math thinking why I put that together in that way. Happy to take questions on any of that or any sort of follow-up if you have it.
I got a
Reverend,
question.
did you have something you wanted to add before there are any discussions?
Well, I mean, so at first I want to thank Trustee Fewens-Bliss for his analysis. As a data person, I was thrilled and with data being presented. Also, I can tell there's a lot of work that we do. Even
Thank you.
Charter Township is not a charter township, is not a clear activity. So I want to commend him on that work. And so in the spirit of the interest in data, I wanted to throw some additional data at this. And so it extends a set of analyses that Trustee Fewens-Bliss put together. So I added a few things. I first just created graphs related to some of these figures of those communities, those charter townships within 20% of that total taxable value. So you can see that, you can see some of the assumptions on that first page. Are there copies of Ordinance?
Yes, there are, like 2 or 3.
If you have these, if you don't have.
Yeah. Unless they were taken.
And so so you see taxable value, and then let me just walk through this. So there's a lot of information in each of these charts, and so these charts are called combo charts. Combo because they provide 2 different sources of data and hit them together. And so you'll see 3 axes. So the vertical axis on the left, it ranges from $350 million to $600 million. Those are the total taxable value of those communities. And so they're sorted from the highest, which is East China, to the lowest, which is Muskegon Charter Township. You can see Bath is highlighted in red. We're right in the middle, which you would expect because we looked at 20% above and 20% below. Again, charter townships closest to us. The right side, you'll see another axis, and it's 20. This is a little bit misleading. It should be negative 20. The negative didn't pop out, to 30. And this is and here's the assumption that I made, and I specify this. Wherever you live, you receive police and fire support, whether the township pays for it itself, whether they have contracts with other townships, or whether the police is provided by the county sheriff. So, and the other thing, what's kind of unique about Bath is we have pretty high school millage rates, especially the debt-related school millage. So I calculated total millage, and this is everything from the county and it's everything from the township. Now it includes everything from the operating costs of the township to sometimes they have fire millages, sometimes they have police-only millages, sometimes they have a combined public safety, sometimes they have a gypsy moth millage for gypsy moth control, or more pertinent to us, mosquito control millage, which I would gladly pay like $5 million for mosquito control. So there's all sorts of assumptions here, and what I want to do is not to create an argument for or against the millage, just for us to have more data at hand to make some data-informed decisions. And so you can see the millage rate, that total millage rate excluding the school millage, it varies from township to township. And you can see Kalamazoo Township has 24.04 mills. Bath is 14.51, and I think this is the lowest is 8.17 for Talmadge Township. So the other thing that you see is a dotted line. That dotted line is the average, and so it's kind of a linear regression. It just shows for where we are, how close are we to that line? And so you can see for this particular graph, 14.51 is nearly right on that line, which to me indicates that we're in the ballpark relative to the data here. Meaning we're not too high, we're not too low. Now, again, lots of assumptions. We can debate whether or not I made the correct assumptions. I know our assessor, the planning professional, the treasurer would probably have some strong comments on this, which is great. And again, the more comments we have, the better. Okay. So if you go to the second page, I then took a look at some information I could find. So I pulled out total crime incidents. This is from the state of Michigan incident crime report. The latest data is 2019, so we're putting 2021 millage data to 2019 crime data. You can see Benton, Michigan, which is just outside of Benton Harbor, which is one of the top 6 most violent cities in the nation, which is a new thing for me. So they have a total crime incidence of 4,088 cases. And so, and you can see how that varies. You can see where we are down off to the very right with 350 incidents. Again, these are reported incidents to the state of Michigan or Michigan State Police. And so you can see where Bath is relative to total crimes in 2019. We're a bit higher than what we would expect based on that dotted line. You can see, and the other thing I did here is I highlighted the bars that are orange. Those are the ones that Trustee Fiewens Bliss identified as having their own police and fire departments. So I just wanted to highlight that. You can see DeWitt's as a counterpart, they had 859 incidents versus ours of 350. Their millage rate 14.70 versus ours 14.51. So the next one, that second slide on that second page, I break it down by using data from Trustee Fiewens Bliss in terms of operating mills versus public safety mills, and I just use his data. One of the interesting things here that I see is that townships typically pay for public safety. The township operating budget is either very low, like 0.9, 0.8, but they have a large public safety fund if they have it. Or vice versa, they have a zero public safety fund and they have a high operating budget. And that's how they fund their police and fire. And so there is that variability. You can see that Kalamazoo has, they have no public safety fund, but their total millage, operating millage is high. We're a balance. I would say that we and DeWitt are a balance of how we pay for our police and fire. So we always, we traditionally have drawn some of our operating budget to cover the cost of public safety. Now this figure also does provide that total crime, total incidence of crime. And so one of the things that you can see is that while our the combination of our operating and public safety, that red line is fairly flat outside of Benton across these townships. The number of crime incidents does vary significantly. So these are just those townships that have both police and fire departments. And so among those, we have the lowest number of crime incidents per 2019 Michigan State Police data. Okay, the next one, poverty rate. I wanted to see if there was a relationship between the percent of our population that met the poverty guidelines from, within the past 12 months. These data come from the Michigan Township Association. They have a lookup tool where they provide a range of statistics from the U.S. Census Bureau. So you can see here where Bath is. We have a fairly higher poverty rate behind Benton, which is in the outskirts of Benton Harbor, Kalamazoo, which is outside the Kalamazoo city, Bangor, which I don't remember where the Bangor is, Niles, and so we have a fairly high poverty rate. Here where you can see in terms of that reference line, that dotted line, we're a bit lower than that line. And so at least within looking at poverty, as just a single variable. Our total rate, again excluding school millage, is a little bit lower than what we would expect. And then the last, I will not belabor this. For those of you who are interested, I did look at population count and population density. Same type of analysis to see where we are, and then on the next page, it's housing, total units, as well as housing density. As I figured these might be related to the cost of doing business for public safety.
Could we do 5-minute recess so I can walk to my office and get some information?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Yes, we will, in 5 minutes.
Do we have to vote on it?
Was it something I said?
Well, why don't we vote on that
We
before I
need to
leave?
vote on a recess, so, all those in favor?
I move we have a recess.
Second.
All right, roll call, recess.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Mr. Fields-Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Pensi?
Yes.
Mr. Woodfuss?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes.
Jason, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Where's China?
New China.
It's over here.
No.
Yeah, no, so.
It's in St. Clair County.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. China and East China are both there.
It's on-
Okay.
Show them on a hand.
Yeah. Okay. Over by Detroit.
Canada,
Huh?
Port Huron, I think.
Oh, okay.
It's on the outskirts of Port Huron.
Oh, okay. I was just, a lot of these I knew, but East China, and China I didn't.
Oh, trust me, I was like, what the heck? Then I was like, are these charter or are they not? So, yeah, yes.
What was perfect was it ended with 20 townships when you did plus or minus 20% only charters. It was this perfect OCD chart for me that was like, ooh, it's exactly 20.
Yeah, I started to like read polls, like, and I was like, first like fully active, I was like, I don't want to do this. Where did you pull charter versus not charter? Because
I found a list online. There's only like 137 or something in the state, right?
Of charter?
Mm-hmm.
More than I thought.
Yeah, I think it's a relatively small number. This Emmett Township is really cool. They've got all of their public safety and fire and EMT, they're all cross-trained, so they're all everything, which is amazing.
They were doing that in the Detroit area 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Police officers carried a gun, and so did the fire department guys, and they would go back and forth depending on where they needed.
Yeah, in this case,
Building, a burning building. Do they want to shoot a gun?
they're all considered public safety officers, but they have firekeepers in that township, and they have a contract with the casino to provide services, and that was, I think, the one that was the smallest in terms of crimes from the database, which makes sense. Oh, I do, thank you. I thought you had something else over there. You can keep that to yourself.
I remember that very, very well.
Did you get what you needed?
Yeah, I got it. He was talking.
Right.
My father.
Not talking to your father, about your father.
Well, we was
I was
talking.
gonna say, if you're talking to
We
him,
was
it's
talking.
okay.
We was talking about.
Yeah, he's all good. Took it literally. It's okay.
Who's been putting the water out for us? That's amazing. Thank you.
Oh, we did? I didn't see that. You just did that.
All right, I think, are we all set?
Yeah, nature called.
So what, go away. All right, we're gonna call the meeting back to order. Our recess is over. We have the information, so I'm assuming we have
I have some
questions.
I don't have any real questions. I have a couple things I have.
Oh,
some-
come back in session? Usually, vote yes,
Yes,
I'll
all
vote.
session, come back the other.
No, that's why you're there.
I move we go back into session.
Second.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Fields West?
Yes. You switched directions on me.
That's what she does. Thank
You
you.
got it straight now. You're enjoying this too much.
Treasurer Wisswasser, no questions.
No questions, but I have some comments,
Comments.
and I have some analytical information here that is official. I did sign it Friday, and the superintendent was there to witness me talking to him about the MD&E report and the draft audit is done, the draft audit is, but we're a long ways from having an audit. Obviously, there's things that they'll do with it, but the numbers are not gonna change. And actually, it states in here that the fund balance is near $250,000. The actual committed fund balance for the public safety fund for 2021 will be $278,497. That'll be the fund balance, so it's a little over that. So let's talk numbers. When you add in the 24,000 interest extra that you went out and we invested in, that we're going to realize this year up and above our normal investments, you're going to be there's an additional $300,000 worth of revenue you're going to have alone with the combination from the leftover fund balance from last year, as well as the interest income you're going to have to increase this year up above where you were last year. So that number is going to change. That's a good number. It's a number you can go with. It's not a projection or anything else. That's an actual number. It's on paper. And I agree to it, actually. So that part of it there, that's what I wanted to talk about there. As far as the rest of it goes, I think it's great that you got a lot of activity here and looking at all this stuff. It depends on how you want to look at it. I'm going to look at it from a very conservative view. In my opinion, with double-digit inflation, with what we have that we're dealing with right now, I'm going to say the same thing as what we said before. I think that we have room to cut our budget. I think we have room to make decisions on that in 2023. I do not think that today is the time to raise taxes. It's awful easy for somebody to sit in the audience and make a comment, maybe that they may or may not know. They say, well, it's only going to cost me an extra $20 a year. That's not the case with every resident that pays taxes. And people, some of these people that make them comments don't even pay their taxes. But the bottom line is that there's a lot more people out there with more than $20 a year at stake here. I'm one of them. I choose to be that way. I have no plan. But that's my feeling on this. I think that you have a lot of people with a lot invested in this community, and their taxable value is very large in this community. We're the second highest taxable value there is in the county once again this year. We actually fell behind with Township by about $100 million this year. were 80 million difference. But it's got a lot going on with it. They got a lot of buildings, there's a lot more rooftops being built over there. But with that being said, Bath Township's gonna receive a lot more revenue in the next couple of years here because of the increased building that we've had. And you gotta remember, we just come off the COVID thing, a COVID year where we didn't have the growth, and we didn't have the building, and we didn't have the new complexes being put in and whatnot. Whereas we've just kind of gotten back into that building boom. For some reason, I can't explain it, but there's a building boom going on out there, but the price of building is extremely high right now. But I'm telling you that I think that our numbers are false as far as what they were in the last couple of years. I think that we have a more true view of what we're gonna see in the way of revenue this year coming up. And I think at the end of 2022, you're gonna see that our revenues are a little bit different. I also am not gonna pick on the superintendent, that's not what this conversation, what do we mean by this, but the budgeting process is gonna get better each year, because each year we do a budget, she's gonna get better at writing a budget, and we'll have more years of experience, more data, and we're gonna have more stuff to work with. But I'm not opposed to, Ryan, your work you did here, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. I agree that you could do that, that would create that $480,000 more. But the only thing I will say is that it hasn't been increased in all these years, but look at the taxable value of what this township was worth way back when. If anything, if we go with that analysis, we really overcharged everybody back when the taxable value was a lot lower, when we were trying to provide millage for a police department. But we didn't have the amount of houses, we didn't have the amount of infrastructure, the commercial and everything else back then 30 years ago when we had this 3 mills. And I think that's the reason why we've been successful in having it renewed every year, is because we've tried to hold the line on it at that point right there. It's interesting, Jason, you said something about that some communities have and I seen that report, I didn't pull it out because I couldn't find it here in my house, but I seen it earlier when you provided it, and that some communities have either a low millage rate for public safety or a higher operating rate for operating, and that kind of goes hand in hand. I mean, you can either take it from one side or the other, but I don't disagree with either one of you. I just think that for the taxpayers and as a taxpayer, I'm sorry if I'm being a little conservative, but I think that this is not the right 2 years to raise this. I think you should wait till 2024, see where you're at, see what you get with some of this other money. You got a lot of money here, and I realize you don't want to make you spend all of it on public safety, but you've got a lot of other money that's been given to the township in the way of ARPA funds and some of this other stuff. And what you're going to find, and I apologize tonight for not having that information to you. I wanted to be here for this meeting so I could make sure that I was able to vote on this. It was important to me, it's important to my family. But you have a lot of opportunities here. I think in 2024 you're going to have a real good idea where you need some more money, you don't need more money. But I think you're asking a lot of people right now. You got to take into remember, it's not just the police and fire and millage and the taxes. And I'm going to shut up and Brenda. It's not just. Hopefully, I do as well on Wednesday when I'm speaking my father's funeral. I hope that you got to remember, you're not just the police and fire taxes that you're going to deal with here. You have a sewer project, a $4.5 million rebuild at the plant you're going to deal with. I learned today when I was in the meeting with Karen with Baker Tilly that we're looking at the possible rebuilding or relining or doing something with the sewer master plan on Webster Road. We could be looking to bond for another $2 million or more just to cover our own little projects we want to do here. And all this is going to result in higher sewage rates for people who are users who run the sewer funds. So that means that their stuff is going to go up. The number got thrown out there today that you don't have to write all this down, but the number got thrown out there today that you're going to be, you got to be $525 a year that they can qualify as a disadvantaged community for sewer rates. We're not even at $525 a year, and I think we're disadvantaged myself, but we're at $400, and we're at 113 times 4, so that's where we're at for our sewer rates. And we're not even there, and there's people who have trouble. There was double the amount of the delinquent sewer rates that went on taxes this year. We collected delinquent taxes than what there was the year before. That tells me that there was an economic slowdown and that there was an economic, so people having a hard time paying their bills. And with that being said, people pay the bills for the most part. People live here and they make sacrifices. But I think we need to do our part to make sure we're making good decisions. That's just my opinion, but I have all the respect in the world for you, Ryan, in your opinion. I have all the respect for you, Jason, and your analytic work you did here. You have the benefit now of having the 2022 information from the equalization. You know where we're at for what our taxable value is, so you can use that. However, we didn't have the public safety fund balance. I know we've talked about that in several meetings. That's a good number. I have it right here, $278,400. I'll take questions if anybody wants to hear me talk more.
I do have a question, Steve.
Yeah.
How much, when we did the budget, how much money was set aside for the full-time firemen? Do you remember that at all?
For the new hired full-time firemen?
The ones that they wanted to hire? There was a number in
I know
there.
it was the police officer, but I don't know.
I don't wait, firemen. I'm sorry, the firemen wanted 2 full-time firemen. And right now, we've gone 4 months. Talked to Dave the other day, and Dave says until the board decides what they're gonna do, he's not gonna hire anybody full-time.
Why?
Well, we're actively working on the full-time descriptions with legal counsel, so we're working towards hiring.
Oh, are you? Because talking to Dave when he was here last meeting, he said until the board decides what they're gonna do
Oh, you mean with the millage?
with the millage to help pay for the 2 officers.
Well, you know, with that question, number one, I'd have to have another recess, go back to my office and get my copy.
Do you want to go back?
I'm glad you guys are friendly today. I'm gonna have a rough day next couple of days. But, you know, with that being said, in all seriousness, that is a big deal, because that's a piece of it, because if you think about your fire departments, it's at the max. What's there, that's the thing. So, you know, the fire department has never asked for anything more, and I'm not saying this just to be, because everybody's always had a little riff over how much money goes to the police and how much goes to the fire and everything else. The fire department's never asked for anything more than what they absolutely needed.
Yeah.
And we have state-of-the-art firefighters, we have state-of-the-art fire equipment and a building, and we paid for that. You know, that's a $2 million structure down there, we paid for that structure, and that's something that this township needs to be proud of. And there's no doubt the community's gonna support some of this, whether they'll support the whole thing. I'm not really concerned about whether they'll support the whole thing, they'll support another village. I'm concerned about whether the community can afford it with the next couple of years of what we're looking at here. I've lived through this in 2007, 2008 especially, and I know what happens. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. I think we can take and put our heads together. I think this board has got a very, as Mr. Benzi's always saying, we have a lot of horsepower here. I think this board can put a lot of thoughts together, and we can look for other ways to fund this excess money we're gonna need if we do need a lot of excess money. But we already know we're at least $300,000 to the good with our investment moves we've made thus far this month, last month in April, as well as our fund balance that we're gonna end up with from the 2021 audit.
The budget request that I have in front of me says it was a $50,000 increase from 21 to 22. That seems low to get 2 full-time people, but I'm sure there was something baked in here.
Insurance, that was just wages, I think. The insurance was on another portion of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The benefits would be, $714 would be the benefits.
Would add up. So,
The benefits went up tremendously, like $70,000.
Yeah.
There tends to be a lot of pay, and because it's based on runs, that
doesn't get utilized and is returned to the fund balance. So it's factored in there with money that's usually returned.
Okay.
Any other questions? I have a couple for you.
I've got comments, but I can
Nope.
wait.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Lori.
Okay, my question has to do with your pieces that you have. And first of all, I have to say, and you're absolutely correct. Between trustee Peter Bliss and trustee Almeida, it was amazing, the information that they got. However, both of you neglected something in there, but I'll go into that. If we're gonna do without Headley, we're gonna have 3 straight mills, how much money are we talking about that we'll actually get?
You mean, what's your millage rate gonna be?
Well, our millage rate has always been 3 mills. However, with Headley, it's always been 2.976
So
or
this year,
2.8.
this year, if you look at 2021, it'll be the lowest it's ever been because we're at the end of the cycle.
Right,
And I believe it'll be, because you gotta remember, we're in the rear here, we collect taxes in the rear, so this year's will be at the lowest end of the cycle, and I have to look to see what it is, I don't have it.
The number's in our packet.
Yeah.
so the number is.
It's 1.5 million, basically.
So that's for the 3 mills with Headley.
It is a
Well,
three-
no, because we're resetting
It
it.
is
So,
a 3
and
mil.
that's what I'm saying, so-
It's 2.96 or 2.98
Exactly,
mils, I
whatever.
don't know which one.
This will be for 3, the number in the
So this will be
language.
in 2023 is when you'll actually get,
No, because it's 2022. 2023 will be the rollback.
That's correct.
okay,
2022 is right now, and you're still collecting in the old millage. It'll be 2023 and 2024.
which
is
you have the new
is
millage.
what you're gonna be for your new millage.
Okay,
I
We have-
thought,
We have one more year of the
Headley.
approved millage right now.
right.
that wasn't my understanding.
That is
That's-
my understanding.
And that's
I collect
not-
taxes, I'm-
No, I believe,
I'm being sarcastic.
I believe you.
I hope you believe I'm.
The language in here says 2022 is what this number will
I
collect.
think it expired in 2021.
It expired 2021,
Yeah.
but if we renew, are we renewing without Headley or with Headley?
It goes to 3 in 2023.
Without Headley, or, so
Correct.
that'll be without.
And
So
then
2023.
2.9748 in 2024.
Yes.
Ish, depending on what the rollback is.
So, okay, that was, so 7 point, tell me again. So with Headley,
In the packet, in the resolution,
yes,
the renewal, it's 2.9748 mils.
But it may not be that.
No, but it.
With the inflation rate, the Headley rollback may be different in 2023.
but ours is saying that you would not have a Headley rollback. You're getting 3 mills
It's,
2023.
in 2023.
we're resetting it. It's not that we don't have a Headley rollback. We're resetting it at 3. And then, like everybody, we would have a Headley rollback in 2023.
I was gonna say 24.
No,
not
2023. 2022 is going to be the 3 mills.
Oh,
2023 is going to be the rollback.
I'm so sorry. A lot of years that this got thrown out, I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right, so 2023, we will have Headley. Okay, so, well, I know, but in our millage, it says you don't have Headley. You have an option to do that, correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
It's I'd want to clarify, it's a reset. It's not that Headley doesn't exist. We are choosing as a community to set it at 3. So Headley doesn't apply because we're resetting it.
But that's done on, as you just said, though, that's done on an economic factor.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my number 1. The one thing that both of you, in all this amazing information that you gave, was there was no revenue for the police department, none whatsoever. And millages are there to support, they're not there to fund, my understanding. A millage is to support what a township is doing.
Oh, you're talking about police
Yes.
revenue from tickets or whatever.
Exactly, that's the revenue, that
Isn't that
we
just
don't,
so
and there's no
small it's
way,
inconsequential?
no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Even if you're talking $50,000, you're still talking 50,000.
I think there's like some small safety
So-
grants and then
No.
fingerprinting.
Yeah.
There's tons of revenue we can get. There's a whole line, a line item that deals with revenue.
But not with our tickets, our civil infractions.
That all go to the library.
The revenue, well, the library, I'm not talking about the library.
I know, because that's where the money.
That's where the money goes.
But I'm talking about your police department, because that's what we're talking about, is police and fire and millage. And all I'm saying is, because you and I agree that this is not probably the best time to do that, but I'm also saying that we need to have a revenue for our police department to be able to show that they are doing something as opposed to on the backs of our citizens. Because it is a regressive tax, meaning that it does fall on the back of individuals whose income.
Keep in mind, it's a service we provide, tax and
Yeah.
service, not a service we provide to take and supply revenue to people that have a job.
That's exactly right. It is a service that we provide for our constituents, but it isn't meant to fund it. It's meant to support it.
I think it's meant to fund it.
No.
That's
See, I
What,
don't-
Marie,
I vote for it.
Marie, what would be the revenues you're looking for?
The revenues I'm looking for is your civil infractions, things that we don't do. And what that is, sorry, Gwen, it would be with a clerk, you know, that you would set, we already have it set up. It's a municipal bureau. And what you would do is just tweak it to be able to create revenue where people who are issued a ticket will come in here and take care of that ticket. They don't go to St. John's.
I'm sorry, what's the municipal bureau?
The municipal bureau. We already have it in our ordinance. We do it with our other individuals. They have, yes, we do. Believe me, we have it, because I looked it up. No,
Let me see if I can help you. All of the tickets and that income
Yes,
goes to the library,
Our portion,
our portion.
our portion. Some
All
goes,
to
They
the
also go
library, and it
to
goes to
retirement.
the Bath Library right down here now.
it goes to retirement of your judges and et cetera. That's when you.
Yeah,
write the
there's-
ticket.
we get a quarter of it.
Yeah,
And
And all I'm
our
saying-
portion,
The police don't write a ticket though for civil infractions, that's done through the building and zoning department and our zoning enforcement department.
exactly.
And that money goes into a totally different fund, that goes into the building, into the zoning
Yes.
administration fund, the zoning, help me out here, Karen, the zoning, the terminology, the zoning, Kevin's. Code enforcement, and that's where that money goes to, what you're talking about.
Correct.
You're not talking about the same thing two times in a row here.
Yes, I
The
am.
penal codes to the
Yes.
library, I hear two different conversations going on here. The penal codes that go to the library penal fine, which are the traffic tickets, the percentage of money that comes in from anything you have for traffic stops and sort of thing. Stuff like that, but the code enforcement, which is the civil infractions and stuff like that, is through our code enforcement department, and that goes back into that department.
That's
So it's
correct.
its own revenue line item, but it has nothing to do with public safety.
That's why I said it takes a little tweaking to be able to create this bureau that would allow those civil infractions 100% to come here.
The reason why we
So
took the
that's-
civil infraction
that's
away
okay.
from the enforcement, away from the police department, way back in probably 2003 or 4, was because it put a bad taste in the mouth of people who were paying police and fire millage, for them people to be out knocking on their doors, telling them that their paint was peeling off their house, or their chickens was running loose in their yard, or whatever.
Has nothing to do with speed.
And now they can do that.
That's why they took and created the civil infraction, and the zoning enforcement bureau, and that's why they created that position. And I think we've had 2 people in that position in the history of it. Am I correct? 3?
We've had 45 civil infractions written. Whatever that cost is, and I don't have that, because there's a range of what that is, could come to this Township.
It cannot come to the public safety department,
Yes,
on the
it
public
could.
safety department. No,
It takes a
cannot.
little bit of tweaking.
It
to
would,
end
it
up-
would require a lot of tweaks. You have
No.
to take, you
No.
have a comment in your audit, number one, because it's not in the right fund. You would have to change the department, which is being administered in, which would have to come from the public safety department. It doesn't. Civil infractions and zoning code enforcement is It's not part of the police department or the public safety fund. That's the story.
Okay. All right, is there any other information that needs to be?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
If you want to go first. Thank you. One of the things we haven't discussed yet is our income. And I can see that our income is gonna be increased this year. Now, I can't give you exactly a total of what my income, or my township income is gonna go up. But there's a lot of construction in this township right now, and we should see a significant change in our overall income. So at this point in time, I would be comfortable in doing a renewal, because I do know that some of our residents are hurting. And I don't think with the money that I have in reserve, or I say the money I have, the money the township has in reserve, and the increase in income that I needed to increase this millage in the next 24 months. If I'm patient, and I'm willing to be patient, my income is going to increase.
You also have to understand that in August, we have a second bite at the apple in November. So just keep that in mind.
So I would support a renewal.
I will second that.
Yes, Trustee Alvin. I'm sorry. Did you?
Did you hear what he said?
Yes, I said it's seconded.
Okay, so, but no.
Does that mean the second you agree?
I second it. I agree with him.
Yes, that's what I thought you meant.
That was his motion.
Oh, was that your motion?
Well, I'll make that motion, but let Jason talk first.
No, if you're making the motion, there's a second. Let's just.
I was gonna say, that's.
So I actually, I do want to make some comments.
Good.
I want to again thank Trustee Fuensquist for his analysis and his attention to this. I'm, as I think we all are, 100% supportive of our police and fire. I'm proud of both of them. I'm incredibly proud of the police department and our officers. They do a great job. They do great community outreach. I think we do need growth and modernization within our fire department. Now, when I presented these data, any one of us could look at this and we can make an argument one side or the other. One of the challenges that I have had on the board is, and you have noticed this by me asking questions, and I think you made a comment about me not accepting the answers. And it was not out of spite or not wanting to hear the right answer, it was not fully understanding. I'm neither an economist nor a public safety professional, and so sometimes these decisions are incredibly hard. I am heavily weighted towards looking at hard facts and data in support of making decisions. One of the things that I think where I lean is, for the time being, especially with inflation, I know I went to Costco over the weekend painfully and thinking I could save some money on groceries, and I'm struggling buying groceries. I mean, it's tough out there. Prices are outrageous, and I have my own conspiracy theories and whatever related to that. I feel like the American public is being gouged by corporations, but that's an argument over coffee somewhere. But it is hard, and so I'm uncomfortable adding more taxes, especially if the county's having conversations about a 1 point plus millage for the new jail that they're looking into. It makes things challenging. But I would like to take the time, so I'd like to see a renewal. I think that's the smart move now. But I also think we take the time, we leverage some ARPA funds and ask professionals to help us make this decision, to audit our departments, to make recommendations as to where we can make improvements, where we can become leaner. And have a professional provide us with expert guidance. I think that makes a lot of sense. That's something that we can use to justify whatever amount we go to increase if the results indicate that we should make those increases. I'm confident that they'll make that recommendation given recent firefighting challenges we've had. So that's where I stand on this. And you can second that if you want.
All right, I'll make sure I'm understood.
I'll make
No,
a
thank you.
motion to do a renewal of the police and fire millage.
Okay.
I have
I'll second it.
Can I ask that I be allowed to work with legal counsel to make sure that our wording is correct for the ballot?
I was just gonna say that,
Thank you.
because there's a couple strikeouts
Thank you.
that, and, before you do the second thing, I had questions with regards, and maybe this is part of that Headley issue, where on the 1, 2, 3, 4th whereas. This is what we're looking at, we're adopting, am I correct?
My motion is to do the renewal.
Right, and this is what this says, renewal, is what this piece says. But on the 4th, if that's what you want to look at, it says, in the opinion of this board, it is necessary to renew the previous levy of millage. I question that for the 3, and that's where we're going. It says, for a specific purpose of defraying costs in whole or in part. I got a problem with that. For the operation of Bath Township Police and Fire Department, and this other section I have a question with, and for the acquisition, repair, replacement, maintenance, and housing of the equipment and apparatus of these departments.
I don't have a problem with that
Okay,
at all.
I do. That language, I have a problem with.
Maureen, let me see if I can help you here. We're dealing with doing the renewal.
Yes,
The language for this will be done by our law firm. We're not gonna write this language.
no, I understand that, but this is what we're passing, this resolution.
No, we're passing his motion.
Oh,
That's my
okay.
motion.
If you're gonna not pass this resolution, then I would agree if that's, all you're looking at is a motion to renew.
That's it.
Okay, that's,
And I'll focus with legal counsel on basically this.
so this is a no.
I mean, to be clear, this is the typical language we pass for renewal every year, right?
Correct.
How many
That doesn't
people were
make
asking
it-
for money?
I'm not saying it's right, Marie, I'm just saying, like, nobody has changed anything. This is what the superintendent is asking us to pass today,
How many's asking for money?
is the resolution you are referring to.
No, you're asking for the motion.
No, Marie, listen to what I'm saying. The superintendent is asking us to pass this resolution. I understand that there's a motion that is different. I'm just stating this is what Karen had asked us tonight.
Okay. Right.
Excuse me,
All right.
Sharon, did the legal counsel already write this up, or is this what you got from like a past resolution?
I got this from the past resolution, and the assessor updated the numbers that are contained within the actual millage language that's on the top of page 2.
Okay.
Do we need a resolution like this? Is this the formal way in which we have to set a
A
millage?
resolution, it can be defined as just an action of the board.
Okay.
So I think that if it's your goal to have this language worked on by myself and the lawyer and get it on the ballot for August 2nd, 2022, I feel like what you're doing right now will accomplish that. If you voted.
Okay.
That's.
Steve, go ahead.
Yes, I love it. Quite
This
finished.
this page right here, it's a little bit hard to read, and it's not, before what we did, it's like, yes, this is a resolution, the 3 mils for 2020, that's a long tax value of $502,000. $20,180,000. But understand, that's not for 2022. This is for to be collected in 2023, because all taxes are collected in arrear. And I believe the resolution that we used to have, I couldn't speak, and I'm not, I may be wrong, but I believe it used to say something to the fact that it was to be collected in 2023. It's being voted on in 22, that's what that means. But it's not going to be collected till 23, because it's collected in arrear. So don't anybody think that you're going to collect $1.5
That's correct.
million in 22.
Yeah.
Not.
No,
Right.
And I can't, I took this resolution from former Superintendent Wojcicki, and I can't verify for you or not whether he worked with legal counsel, but this was the previous version that I could locate
Well, here's the way,
and update.
here's the way it'll work at the county. And that's where it matters, because they're the ones that's gonna say what the rate's gonna be. But it's gonna, they're gonna understand, I'm trying to be educational here, they understand what this means, but I want every board member here, and anybody that's in the audience to understand that this is not gonna happen in 22, it's gonna happen in 23.
But it is a 22 tax. That's collected in 2023.
22 and it's collected in 23. All
Right, but
taxes-
based on 2022 value.
That's correct. All
Right,
taxes
okay.
are collected in the rear, as long as everybody understands that.
Yeah.
And the understanding of that, because it's kind of ambiguous, really, the way it's written.
It's not a logical thing in the way that we run our household, so it is hard to wrap your head around sometimes.
We're on cash accounting and dollars.
Right,
This is
right.
purchase accounting, and they can't run that with curves, and that's what basically what it comes down to. As long as everybody understands that.
Well, I can see that there isn't support for this, and I appreciate you all hearing me out and reading the information. And, you know, we have all the opportunity to revisit this in the future should we feel like we need to. I think it's important to remember that we too will feel the pain of inflation at the township. So extra revenue that we may be expecting to come, we might not see in the same way or may not go as far because we're going to be paying more out of our own coffers for those things too. So I think we're going to have to look at revenue at some point. If it's not this year, it's next year. If it's not next year, it's a year after. I think that's important. And to that point, the last thing I'll say is I did include, since I was in everybody's L 4029, I thought I would capture the road millages since we had talked about that. I found it interesting that 8 of our peer townships, plus or minus 20% of taxable value, have road millages. So while I was collecting the data, I thought since that was an idea we were considering it sometime in the future, it's included in that information.
I'll
Can I
call,
clarify
yes.
the motion?
Well,
Is that okay?
No,
Okay. To approve the resolution to adopt the police and fire millage renewal at 3 mills to be placed on the August 2nd, 2022 primary election. And after submission by the superintendent to contact legal counsel to review. Correct. Okay.
Is there a second? That motion?
Yeah, we
She
got
just
Joe.
read it.
Okay.
Okay. Oh,
Joe, motion.
okay.
Okay?
Vote.
Okay. Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Dempsey?
Yes,
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes, the wait a minute.
Ms. Butler? Okay, Ms. Butler Challenger, yes, and Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are so patient. You really are patient. All right. Now we're going to take our items for action, which is still the second reading and adoption. So Lyles, you're up, finally.
All right, so I introduced these, I believe, at the last meeting, lot frontage. That's just an ordinance to update the language within the zoning ordinance to read as we've always applied it, taking lot frontage as an additional measurement in addition to lot width. It's been added throughout the ordinance in every district and some of the subsections for different special things such as PUDs. Does anyone have any questions?
The motion?
Move approval of the second reading and adoption of ordinance 31.75.
Second,
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz-Balez?
Yes.
Thank you.
And then
Don't
we,
sit down.
and then we got the sign ordinance. This is an ordinance to update our signage language within the township, kind of make us more in line with the greater Lansing area, modernize some of our standards. Signs have changed over time. We should change with those.
My only question with that, is this through our ordinance people so that they would know what you did, because I agree with what you've done. My question is, how do you enforce it?
Well, we had a complaint earlier this week about a gentleman's sign. Someone called me, complained about a sign in the right of way. I called Kevin Douglas. He drove out there, took some pictures, sent it back. I read through our language, saw that it was in fact in the right of way. Called the number on the sign, said, please move that out of the right of way and put in a signage application.
And he did that.
And he has moved the sign out of the right of way, and we are awaiting his application because he has to send it in with the application fee, so via mail.
Cool. That's what I,
We do, yeah. So a nidometer, I do not know actually if we have a nidometer, but if we were to have to measure the lighting of a sign via a nidometer, it says in the ordinance that the cost of that can be put on the development in question. So we could hire out those services and then in turn put the cost on the applicant or the business.
I might have to file a complaint.
That's fine.
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 31.76
Second.
and then the sign ordinance.
Second now.
Know that ordinance?
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Mr. Diaz-Balez?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Thank you.
Believe it or not, we're actually on page 3. And we removed D. So we're at 14, which is new business. Items for discussion and introduction.
Okay, so you guys have not seen this item before. This is a apartment complex that's seeking to develop right in front of Hawks Ridge out here. I think everyone in the room, I hope, knows that, where that's at. If you're going down Webster, make that left onto Park Lake Road. I believe it's called Red Tail Drive, is that drive that leads into it. It'd be your first left off once you've turned on to Park Lake. So just to address one of the comments that were made earlier, I did get a phone call mid last week from a former board member about, I'm assuming they were on the board at the time when Hawks Ridge came to be developed. They asked, I thought it was townhomes or condos that were supposed to go on those two outlots of this development. I did, when this development first came to Bath Township, took a look at the plans from, I believe it was 2007 for Hawks Ridge. There were condos to be phased in and a phased-in development on that site, but there were no restrictions, there were no conditions placed on that developer at the time. There was no deed restriction or any kind of rules that would hold their feet to the fire or any kind of regulations that were put in place. So typically, as what happens in phased-in development, which is why there's much discussion in the planning industry around phased-in development, they, at a later date, seek to build a more intense land use. And here we are with that more intense land use. There was a fair amount of constructive discussion at the Planning Commission over, what the commission thought about this use, what we thought about the density, what they thought about, the amount of impervious surface on this site. From my perspective, it's within the high-density development zoning district within Bath Township. They met all the required screening, they were met all the required setbacks, they met the required density, or in Bath Township's case, the required lot coverage amount of that zoning district. It's two different parcels, so when you are on Red Tail Drive, that kind of leads into Hawks Ridge, you'll notice that it was developed with kind of two drives that were capped, but to be developed off of to each separate parcel on, let me fold out my plan here because I don't want to give anyone inaccurate information. So if you're driving down that Red Tail Drive, the parcel that would be off to your left, there are two buildings, two structures to be placed on that parcel. And the building, or the parcel off to your right, there are three structures to be placed on that. Each structure has 8 units within it, 5 buildings total. That's 40 structures in total, or 40 living units in total.
So Red Tail Drive, of understanding, is between the two?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's a new road that's gonna go in?
It's a road that has always been in, and it's currently developed to be developed out. Because
So it's
back in
not-
2007, they always had the mindset they were gonna develop those outlots.
Okay, but this Red Tail is a new road.
It is not.
It's not
It's
a
the
new
road
road.
that leads into Hawks Ridge.
So where's the senior section?
In the back. It's
The
on
right
north-
side of that.
On the east corner of the property.
Behind the township building.
Oh,
Yeah.
right by the community center. Well, that's what I thought, that's what.
There's,
so
that would be,
the road-
if you're driving, so you're on Webster, you made a left onto Park Lake Road.
Yes.
Your first left would be Red Tail. That second left would be the drive that goes before the community center, and that leads back to where the
Yep.
senior living
Okay,
is.
that's, 'cause I don't remember that first bump in that, or you bumped it, I think. Is it? Okay. I was gonna say, I think there's a space problem here between the two of us. Okay, no, that helped, because I was trying to figure out, when you said Red Tail, if that was a new road that was going in, and it's not. There's a road that's already there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are you saying that this proposed development meets all the current ordinances of our township?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
So it doesn't matter if they had a phase-in plan before, or if this was a new build, they're still in compliance?
Mm-hmm, that's correct.
I was there in 2007 for all of these discussions, and what's important for the board to know is that the developer, at a later point in time, because of economic reasons, has the right to come in and amend his special use permit to do something that's different. And we have lots of examples of
Doesn't he
it.
have to do that early? Can you do that anytime, like 5 or 6 years later?
Well, they can amend their site plan at any time, that's
Okay.
5 or 6 years later. So
That's-
all this is an amendment to the original site plan. And
Is that?
this is a very good piece of work, by the way.
And isn't it true that if they amend it,
This is an amendment, right?
Is in compliance with the current
Yes.
ordinances?
It's just like you asked them.
This is not technically an amendment.
Yeah, just to clear some stuff up.
This is new.
So typically, if this land, these two parcels were owned by that same developer that was doing Hawks Bridge, they would have to amend their site plan, because that was,
Because it's new.
however, these two parcels were sold and currently held by a different LLC than the LLC that develops Hawk Bridge. Now, there's a lot of the same players involved between the developments in those two LLCs. This is something that's typical within the development field, is the creation of different LLCs and the liquidation of those LLCs. It's a fun little thing we do in society.
Sorry.
Oh, Bill, go ahead.
Is this a two-story or one-story?
It's 2 stories.
It's a two-story.
So it'd be 4, so each building will have 4 units on the bottom story and 4 units above that. And then each kind of,
I was just gonna say, if you would like to see plans, we do have plans, and they can be shared electronically too. I know sometimes they're harder to see on the computer.
Do we still have the-
Yes, but we
Yeah.
do have,
I can send you guys this electronic copy of this as well.
I know it-
And the developers will be here next meeting, I believe, to answer these questions in more detail as well. This is kind of an introduction to it.
That's good. Let me show my ignorance. Among other things. The cross-hatching, what is that? I'm sorry.
Cross-hatching.
You guys probably already know that. I don't know. Cross-hatching. It's on the second page. It says agency review comments received and reviewed prior to the site approval. Next to the last section, oh no, I'm sorry, this is general items. It's the second bullet.
Mm-hmm.
It's so it's about cross-hatching.
It's a sign on the plans. They used cross-hatching as their, to indicate that it meant something. So the feedback was, what's that mean?
They didn't tell me anything. I'm sorry.
You need to see the plans to understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's some cross-hatching on this plan. And one thing to note about these staff reports, and I've spoken a little bit about how to do this best, because I'm trying to give the planning commission and yourself, this body, full information on how the agencies have, how their comments have come in over time. I don't know, and it could be worth maybe dating those comments and then saying comments reviewed and addressed or something like that. This is a little bit of a learning curve on my end on how best to convey this to you. But there was cross-hatching on the original set of plans. These comments were reviewed. A second set of plans were submitted. The cross-hatching was now addressed in the legend. So it's now
It's a
identified.
term that's used.
It's a symbol.
It just means things are hatched,
Gotcha.
crossed,
Thank
in a
you.
crossed way. Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Miles, how many, single-family units is there in this complex?
Single family,
Yeah, how many units, how many apartments is there?
40 total.
40 total?
Yes.
And and this is a standalone building, so it doesn't have a clubhouse or anything like that goes with it?
There are 5 standalone buildings, and what the developer has conveyed to the PC is they will share the facility of the clubhouse as Hawks Ridge is currently operating out.
Okay, that answers that question, but there's 5 total units with a total of
5 structures.
5 structures with a total of 40 single-family homes for the basic. So in other words, you got 40 REUs for sewer use is what we're looking at here. And we're well within our sewer capacity limits of what we have currently.
That's true.
And did they have any kind of an agreement in their old LLC that reserved any sewer capacity or any REUs, or are they operating off of what they list available?
I actually can't, I think that's a fair question. I guess I would save that one for them when they're here. And I can look up in the meantime and get with you, and I can get with you, during the week about it.
That needs to be looked at to make sure, I want to make sure with 5, I realized I thought there was 5, I want to make sure how many there was total. If there's 40, so that means there's 40 REUs.
I guess-
Residential equivalent units. And we have a total of 300, if I'm not mistaken, right now, is available, am I right
Correct.
there?
Mhm.
Okay. Yes.
I guess my assumption is that because this is operating under its own LLC, this is its own development, they will develop their own sewer infrastructure and pay their own tap-in fees.
The lid will be at a higher rate than what it was when we started. That's first one.
Mr. Yamaguchi, go ahead.
Is there an MOU in place between Hawks Ridge and this second LLC?
No, that was my.
No,
question,
what
too.
is the acronym? Sorry.
Oh, memorandum of understanding.
Not that I know of.
I would expect to see a letter of understanding before approval of this. The second thing I wanted to ask is, just to confirm, and this is related to Ms. Ritchie's comment about green space. I know we have newer ordinances related to green space and landscaping. These proposed developments are in compliance with those ordinances.
They're in compliance with the landscaping ordinance. We do not have any green space, we don't have a green space standard.
You don't?
The landscaping ordinance would then be that, right? No,
There are green space standards within the landscaping ordinance. I didn't know if you're referring to a separate green space ordinance, which is something that we are actually right now looking at.
within.
Jason, could I ask a question to your question?
Yeah.
If there was not an agreement between the two LLCs, so the new residents could not use the clubhouse facilities of the old residents, would that be a deal breaker for us?
For me, it would. We've had, Somerset has
Yes.
Yes.
brought this to light in terms of assumptions being made without real commitments being put into place. And because the number of children that are in Hawks Ridge, I would want to make sure that there is adequate green space, clubhouse, facilities, pools, whatever. Adequate resources for them to enjoy the outside. And so, and to lock that in without any question before we approve it.
It also makes it better so the sewer are used as far
Does make
as
our
what
use.
you're gonna have there, as far as if you have if it has its own pool, that clubhouse, and that sort of thing goes up. At the current rate, at 40 units total, I mean, that generates, just for FYI, that generates $160,000 worth of revenue to the sewer fund for connection fees alone.
But would our expectation be that a development of this size in the future, set apart from another development, would have clubhouse services? Why?
I've not been on the planning commission for a bit of time, but I know, again, going back to Somerset, we had vigorous conversations about that, and at least, I won't speak on others' behalf, I have a strong expectation that we do as much as we can to ensure that there's outdoor recreation space.
Can I say a little bit about this? So I think the point is well taken. I always love having agreements in writing. I think that's great. You know, that's a great point. You know, I would suggest that we do follow up with that, or that this body would follow up with trying to seek out some kind of memorandum of understanding to that accord. Now, when it comes to this development in Hawks Ridge versus Autumn Harvest in Somerset, I think the dynamic might be a little slightly different, and that doesn't mean that we shouldn't look for that memorandum of understanding. I think that's a great call. But when Autumn Harvest seek to originally develop, you know, within any kind of greater Somerset complex, I think it kind of did come to the township, and this is before my time, but with no clubhouse, right? And it appeared, at least on paper, that their end goal was maybe to sell to Somerset, but then Somerset indicated to us, I believe at the time, once again before my time, that they were not looking to buy nor work with these people at all.
That is correct. I'll just say why this is a particular interest to me is that this is a development, again, with heavy population of students and youth. It's an island. There are sidewalks in front of it that connect to nothing. You know, they go to a highway on-ramp, and then they end at the community center. And so, unless we're going to build a sidewalk that connects that development to Westchester Park, I would expect to see a memorandum of understanding or a concrete agreement.
Oh, totally fair point. And I think that agreement would probably be easily facilitated from this development, since even though it's two different LLCs, many of the controlling members of those two LLCs are the same individual.
Can I then clarify my last question? So for the planning commission to understand this board's intent, for future developments that look like this, that may not be connected to another development, we would be asking them to have a clubhouse.
If the proposed development is leveraging a promise of we'll provide amenities based on someone else's set of amenities, y'all should have a concrete agreement in place before it moves.
Yeah, but that's not my question. So do we want to make sure there's a clubhouse, a facility like that for these types of development, regardless of what they're near or what they're next to? Because I don't think there's a place in our ordinances or a checklist that someone's saying, you've got 40 units, you've got 80 units, now you need some sort of facility for recreation.
I would argue, I think there's others on the planning commission and the board that would argue the same, is that it depends on the particular context. So if there is a development that's adjacent to a park, I think there's more flexibility that we can have. If there's easy access to green space or play space or a picnic space, whatever it may be, it all depends. I mean, if Somerset and were to build or with new development or proposed development were to build a connection to Bengal Wildlife, and they have facilities there, I mean, again, it's really hard to say, do we mandate a clubhouse and a pool, and then get down into the weeds of the pool has to be of certain dimensions and the like. We don't want to get there, but we do want to ensure that we ensure that any development that we approve is in alignment with our Parks and Rec plan, our comprehensive plan, in which we do talk about green space and we do talk about recreation.
There just is no functional way that we are doing that right now, is my point. Like, does that need to be on a checklist somewhere? Do we want to enshrine that in some sort of ordinance? Do we want to give direction to Miles in terms of, like, this is the type of thing?
There is, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna take it a step further, so if you want to speak to that point, please.
There's all sorts of places where we can improve our ordinances. I know Miles has been doing a good job of doing that. Lot frontage is one of them. We've talked about a conservation district ordinance in the past, which didn't get past this board. And that may be something that we may want to look at again. I would argue, I mean, since we did do a landscaping plan, I think, a green space, it sounds like a green space plan, our ordinance is somewhere on the docket or upcoming. So maybe that would be what addresses this and provides the level of detail that's, I think, would be supported.
That's not going to have anything about clubhouses and pools.
It could, though. It's all within your purview as the board reps, the planning commission, and the planning commission, our planner and another planning commission member. That ordinance can be inclusive of that.
All right, that is a message I will take back to the planning commission then.
Miles, Joe can answer this, and probably you can answer this, Mr. Wright, but this has not got any ties to any payments of tax, because when that original complex was developed, it was developed under the understanding that the percentage number of the buildings was supposed to be tied to payments of tax. So this is going to be taxed the same, but the rest of the buildings are taxed, is that correct?
This will be developed as market rate apartments.
Okay. But I think, Joe, you was on the planning commission, you remember there was a percentage was involved in that.
Yes.
Yeah, on this issue, Ryan, we have been tremendously successful in conversation and working with the developers. It's their benefit to have an exercise room, a swimming pool, a place where people can gather. And in my experiences, we've never had too much trouble asking them to do the right thing, and they've done it.
Sure, and that you're misreading my concern on this. My concern is about a system. If they had fully sold this piece of property to real different people, there's like an overlapping of ownership here that makes it a little murky. Would our expectation be that they take out one of these buildings and put in some sort of infrastructure we've talked about? Because that doesn't sit anywhere right now. It's just happenstance that it's by this other place and there's an overlapping of ownership. So that, I just want to make sure the message to the planning commission is right, that somebody needs along the lines to bring that up.
And that guidance could be helpful for me as well when we're doing the pre-application meetings, just to kind of give developers a high-level overview of what these bodies are looking for.
Sure. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I would go a step further, Ryan. When we took a look at Taco Bell, and that was prior to Miles coming on board, the planning commission was wonderful at recognizing that Taco Bell was going to be utilizing some of the same entry and exit of the parking lot. They wanted a shared maintenance agreement in place for that.
Yeah, my concern is not the shared agreement. My concern is, are we expecting these types of facilities
There
to
should be-
build a recreational
Yes, or
center?
there should be an agreement in place that they're gonna share.
But there may not be one that exists. Do you understand what I'm saying? Take a blank piece of land, there's
Yes.
nothing there.
Yep.
They come in and they build what they're proposing there in this blank piece of land. It does not exist to have a facility. Is our expectation that they build a facility? But that's not anywhere. So I get that you all are saying, yes, it doesn't exist in any space, so it's gotta exist somewhere so that the planning commission knows that's our expectation, and Miles knows that's our expectation. Because what will happen is Miles is not gonna tell a developer that. They're gonna get through the process and get to us and be like, no, this doesn't include this thing that we care about.
Trustee Goodson.
Ryan, I got it.
Thank you. I just want to be clear. I agree with the fundamental agreement discussion. I'm trying to think beyond that.
Listen, I got it.
Did anybody have any questions?
John.
For Mr. Wright?
I'd like to address Mr. Wishwasher's question. That was brought up by me, Steve, when this developer first came to us. Although I wasn't at the planning commission at the time, I said, do you have any intention of asking for a pilot for this? And in our minutes, it says, no, he does not intend on asking for any tax breaks. So that was an issue for me.
That was a big deal, that was a deal maker in that year.
Yes, it certainly was, yes.
67 when they did this. That was a
Absolutely.
huge deal.
And yes, the planning commission does take into consideration REUs when we're approving a development, because we continually track the number that we have.
Here's the thing to think about the REUs is I did the math while I was sitting here. I mean, that creates $40,000 or $50,000 in revenue a year for your quarterly service rate uses for service, which helps us out tremendously where we're at, as well as the tap fees. But here's the thing, you mentioned they're gonna put their own sewer infrastructure in there, so there may be some things they have to build in there that they will have to pay for, because that'll be on them as well. But here's the deal, folks, the sewer's already there, the space is already there. Frankly, honestly, I'm thrilled that they're gonna share the pool, and they're gonna share the green space, but because we can afford to have the building like that, we can have development like that for the multi-units for sewer usage, and it's good cash flow for the sewer system, and it helps us for what we're doing versus going out and developing new infrastructure somewhere else. It's already there, and we're just capitalizing on what we're planning for. It's good business. Bill's more than.
Well, the planning commission's had an ongoing discussion about what constitutes an acceptable green space, because the present ordinance only calls for the actual footprint of the roof of a building in terms of calculating the amount of lot coverage, and does not count driveways, parking lots, any other,
So there is no green space?
no, there's no.
I wouldn't say there's no.
No, I wouldn't say there's no. I
Okay.
would just say that you can't have more than a certain amount, depending on the district you're in, of actual roof. There's a lot of lot coverage that's not roof. Yes.
So, out of curiosity, not as, was the green space that this proposed development is on, was that counted as green space in the prior development? I'm assuming it wasn't, but does the prior development, if these new buildings were to be put in place, then fall outside, I failed to meet the,
No,
green space requirements?
no, not as the present ordinance is written.
Okay, so both would still be compliant?
That's
Again, with the
correct.
understanding that the other facilities are in place?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Could we, can I ask one more question? The memorandum of understanding, would that be acceptable as a proposed condition of approval?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes, I would say so.
yeah, we're understanding, get a letter of understanding.
It means that all these things have to be in place before we issue a building permit.
If that's what you're looking at, is the whole list of
It's,
what
there's
your understanding
currently
is.
1, 2, 3, 4 of them, but I'm saying, would it be acceptable to add the fifth one being shared? equipment used, as the, yes, okay, yeah. Because then
We'll get
then
that.
they can't
We'll
get a
have it
building
before the
permit
next
until
one.
these things are completed. Is that correct, Miles? They can't get a building permit
That's
until it's
correct.
done.
Correct.
Okay.
It can be submitted as a part of their set of construction plans and supporting materials.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
You're moving away from the mic. No, I'm kidding. Is there any other, it doesn't seem to be. Good
And
job.
like I said, they will be here for the next meeting to answer any of
And
your
you'll
questions.
send those drawings out?
I can send them out to the board.
Thank you.
That would be appreciated. All right, let's see where we're at. We're still on new business, 14. Municipal way, notice of a special township for meeting.
So this resulted out of some confusion that came from Eagle, the State Department. And Prine and Newhoff, which is our engineering firm, is working on a similar project for another community and was guided by Eagle one way as to public noticing and then guided our project another way on public noticing. The original intent of this public hearing is to collect any comments on our plan that you've approved moving forward. And so it's a requirement to submit for SRF. So based on what was originally intended, this meeting was intended to be your second meeting of May. Because of the discrepancy with Eagle, it had to be re-noticed, which means it had to be republished in the newspaper, and then we had to recount the days that it had been out for notice. And so it resulted in there needing to be a special meeting in order to capture this public comment on the plan, which people can either come to the meeting and speak to the plan, or they can submit letters or emails in writing, so via the US mail, or they can email us their feedback. So this is, it's very complicated, and I'm sorry for that, but it is a requirement of us applying to the state revolving fund for our sewer projects.
And it's got to be done at a certain time?
Well, we have to submit our project by June 1st.
Oh, so it can't be a June meeting?
No, it cannot be. And that's what the flexibility, at one time, they said that we could put it on the internet, we could do a lot of other things, post it outside, and that was sufficient. And then when Eagle came back and had a different opinion for another community, we had to get a decision from them for both of our communities in order to move forward. And this was the solution, was to reissue, republish, recount, and which would require us to have a special meeting.
That on a
If
Monday?
we do not do this, I cannot submit our projects to the state revolving fund.
Is that on a Monday,
Wednesday.
So
Wednesday?
it's a Wednesday. Not gonna work. Not gonna be. So, whatever the rest of them do, I'm just hoping.
Okay.
That was arbitrary by you, the 25th.
No,
right?
it was chosen by the engineering firm.
Okay.
We didn't have a choice, because it's a June 1st. In an ideal situation, I would have surveyed all of you to see what worked for
Okay,
you.
we can't do it the 19th then.
No, the
Why is it
cutoff
just
for receiving the public comment is the 24th, I believe, or the 22nd. 22nd or 24th. So it has to be after that we have the.
You have so many days.
Yes, you have to have
Yes.
so many days after.
No, I understand that. It's 30 days is the longest, no more than that. No less than what, 17 or something like that?
We don't have to vote on this, do we?
You do not,
Okay.
but it is helpful to know if there will be 4 of you.
I'll be there.
Okay, so
Nope.
you can't,
I
okay.
can't.
Ryan? can
I'll
you?
be there, yes.
Okay. And to be very honest with you, the 187-page document, I believe, is at the front counter and it's on our website. No one may read it, other than some of you.
Any copy?
I'll get you a copy. And we have to hire a court stenographer to even come and take a transcript of this that's required, for the submission. No one may show up but us. It's likely, but
It
Is-
says wastewater collection, so that's our system,
yes.
not SCUBA.
Nope,
Our system.
ours, yep.
No, but I would like to have, I would like to have a copy of the
You can, I will, I've got one in my office.
177.
187.
Okay. All right.
Any questions? It is not ideal. Brian and Newhoff were upset, to say the least. But when you're working on a major project, sometimes things don't go the way that you hope they do, and this is our accommodation for that.
So we gotta have a vote on this or not? Is
No,
that-
No.
You
no,
don't?
but
I got a
you,
quick-
go ahead.
Why do you have a special meeting as opposed to just a public hearing? Why do you have to have a special meeting for a public hearing?
Because the public hearing is contained within the special meeting.
Okay.
Which means you would come to order, you would do the pledge,
Yes.
you would do, and then you would open it up. You would open up the public hearing and let people speak, close that,
Yep,
close your meeting.
I got
Yeah.
it. It's formal.
Yep. Thank you for your understanding.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm writing myself notes.
No, it's okay.
That's, okay. Items for action. We have a request for a headstone height variance on Pleasant Hill.
Yeah.
Shoot.
I think this happened a couple years ago also, but we had a family request to have a waiver on the height of a monument. Currently, our height on our monuments is a 6-inch base with a 30-inch monument, so it'll go up to 36 inches. Okay, and it states in our rules and regulations that it has to come to the board if anybody wants to have it higher. So we have a family that would like to have a monument, including the base, of 48 inches. So about 12 inches higher than what our rules and regulations says. Part of the reason we have this height requirement, or the height limit, is because, and I just learned this, sometimes when the DPW go out there and they open up the graves, they have to move the monuments.
Yes.
And they don't, you know, the larger they are, the heavier they are, and they could break them. So they temporarily move them, they open the grave, they close it, then they move them back.
That's
Yeah, and heavy.
pretty heavy.
The director of, Mr. Zeeb, the director of Park and Public Works, put in the 2022 budget to purchase a gravel,
Yeah,
okay, to help move the monuments if needed. So we do have the equipment coming, we haven't ordered it yet, but we can order it, so if we have to move a larger monument, we would have the equipment. With this, I'm
we
sorry.
should have that equipment.
Yes.
Yes.
With this particular headstone, they have a headstone out there, they want to remove that, replace it with the larger headstone, and we checked for all the lots around it, and they're all occupied. So right now, we wouldn't have to move this particular monument. So,
Go ahead.
I don't have any issue with this, but should we revisit the rules then, so that
Yes.
it's not,
That's
it feels awkward to be arbitrary for us, like this family gets it, this family doesn't.
Exactly.
yes, we had talked about that, yeah.
Because this is only talking about one family, right?
It says in the rules and regulations that anytime somebody wants to go over a certain height requirement, it has to come to the board.
Right, so that's an individual.
Yeah, so we're just basically
That's what I
voting
was-
on this individual,
Yeah, that's
is what we're
what I
doing
was-
at this point in time. We are, as we're going over the cemetery, we're improving the cemetery, we're making mapping of the cemetery, we're gonna go over all the rules, we're gonna go over we're gonna try to get every aspect of the cemetery looked at while we're going through this process.
Welcome, new clerk.
That's our goals.
I got a question.
It's the other women too who are working on it.
Are we gonna limit this to 48 inches, or are we going to say they can have a 5 foot, or?
No, we're gonna approve it. She gave me the,
Yeah, but what about the next person that comes around?
Well, that's the question.
as of right now, it would come to the board until we look into everything and the board approves the new rules and regulations. So it's on a case-by-case basis at this point.
Okay.
Jason?
And I think that, Mr. Zeeb said that this happened 2 years ago and Kathy approved it. I don't know if it came to the board or not. I didn't look at.
So, on the assumption that the original limitations were made a long, long time ago when tractors were of a different horsepower and the like, and modern equipment is more powerful and more compact, I have no issue supporting this, and would imagine that when we revisit this, we'll increase the height requirements.
Yeah, we're gonna revisit, re-look at doing the whole rules and regulations, and then when we look at over everything, match it up with the ordinance, we'll bring it back to the board for the board's approval on everything.
So you're looking for a motion, right?
Yeah.
So I move to accept the requested waiver from the Frisbee family.
Which family is this?
Second.
The Frisbee family.
Frisbee. That's what I thought you said, but it can't be right. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Ms. Butler Challenger, yes. Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Mr. Funes Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi?
Yes.
Mr. Benzi?
Yes.
Mr. Wisswasser?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Number 15, Superintendent's report.
Thank you. I would first like to say thank you to both trustee Hewens Bliss and trustee Almarigi. It was extremely helpful for you both to use your brain power and assist with the millage renewal. It's sometimes very difficult to understand what this board might find helpful in making a decision, and I think that you two are fantastic in stepping up and helping, as is Steve, when it comes to these items. I don't always have all the answers, even though I've been here a long time, so I think it's fantastic. I appreciate the support. I'm sure your board members, which it sounds like they appreciated the support as well. And I think it helps us get to a better decision. So thank you very much for the discussion and for the hard work. The first item on my report is, unfortunately, that our senior center is closed through the rest of the week. We had a couple of cases of COVID that occurred in the senior center, unfortunately, right after we lifted the mask mandate from them. And you know, I think everybody has been wearing masks. I think the immune systems are down. I think COVID is still here, and I think we let our guard down a little bit, but fortunately we caught it in time. I have not heard of any other outbreaks or positive cases as a result of this. That doesn't mean they haven't occurred, but at this time it doesn't sound like it made it further than a couple of staff members, which I'm proud of our staff members for following procedures and letting us know that they weren't feeling well and that something might be occurring with them, and enabled us to act very quickly to protect other people. Had we not, we could have been in a different situation and spreading this amongst a lot of vulnerable seniors. So I'm very proud of the staff, not for getting COVID, but for, you know, reporting and just being honest and saying, like, we don't feel good, something's going on, we should test, we'll let you know. And we were able to act very nimbly. Last Friday, I filed the first ARPA report that was required, and identified that we would be using our funds that we've received to date as revenue replacement. Now, this is a moment in time report, and it captures what we're doing to date. That does not mean that we cannot use the funds for anything else. It means that if you determine as a board we're going to use it for something else, when my next annual report comes around, I would report that project as well as revenue replacement fund of the funds.
I don't mean to interrupt, but can I ask a question? do we have to prove that we lost revenue?
If you receive less than $10 million, you do not have to.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, they really created, I mean, for a government report submission, it was very easy, and I don't think I've ever said that. But they made it easy for non-entitlement units that got less than $10 million to use it as revenue replacement.
Okay.
So, but when this board decides to use it for a different project, whether that be broadband, whether that be anything else, we will report that at that time, and I will be annually reporting in April of each year. So next April, the report could be very differently. I'm sorry.
With the dollar amount?
So this time it was the $600,000, but yeah.
But I mean, if the broadband is.
Yes, you do. You have to identify how much is being expended to that project. Well, right now I've reported it's going towards revenue replacement, so.
So do we have to indicate the amount then for revenue replacement?
Basically, it's what we've received to date.
But it's in a different account, right? So
It
at
is.
some point, we'd have to move the money out of a different account to compensate the lost revenue.
Correct, but there would also have to be a lot of discussions and approval by this board in order to do that as well.
It's actually a set of accounts is set up for right now, because we're an untitled government. And it's a free number right from Treasury that what we use is a 500, 582, something like that. And it stays there. And we actually have it in a separate bank account, but when we started out with this program, you weren't eligible to take, if you was an untitled government, to make interest on your money. So you had to get it out of an interest-bearing account. Now, we can make interest on it. We can record interest on it on a regular basis because they changed that rule.
And I think we've already earned like $60 in interest.
I have one more question, sorry.
No, it's okay.
So we have until 2024 to encumber those funds?
Yes.
Okay, so at some point between now and 2024,
Yes.
this entity needs to make a decision,
Yes.
spent in this
How
way,
to
move the
spend-
money as
move the money,
appropriate.
yes,
Okay.
that is correct, but nothing will be done with it, other than it's going to sit there. We'll receive additional funds, I believe, next year, and those funds will join those funds in that bank account.
And do you envision that just running through the normal budget process, or do you think there'll be some other process where you will spark conversation at this level to determine spending?
I think it can happen both ways, but I think there should be deliberate discussions of the benefit that could be recognized by this township as a result of those.
I know it could happen both ways, but like, what do you want? What is your
I would like a
request?
deliberate discussion of.
Separate than the budget
Separate than
process?
the budget.
Okay.
Yeah,
Then I think we just got to figure out
yes.
the hows and whens of that.
Mhm. So, and then I was notified this week in talking about the senior center closing due to COVID, that we are, Sheila, that did our beach testing last year, has actually been promoted within the health department. So she was actually helping me with the senior center closing. And I found out that we will have a new representative of the health department coming into our community and testing the water for E. coli. And that's Charity Little, and I've worked for years with her via email and phone, but I've never met her, so I'm excited for us to meet and for her to work in our community, making sure that that beach water is safe for us. And I'm hoping that the efforts that we've made with Goosebusters and that we will make with the ordinance changes, that we'll have a clean beach and swimming area this year. So I'm excited that that will continue. As Treasurer Wiswasser mentioned, we did meet with Baker Tilly today. They're a firm that will do a rate study based on the money that we are going to be liable for at SCUMA for payments of our portion of that improvement project at SCUMA. And they will help us figure out the best way to, I'd say pay for that, but interest rates, if it were a sense of bonding, or, I'm not gonna butcher it, but.
They're gonna tell you how they amortize it out, whether you're gonna have a 20-year note or you're gonna have a 30-year note, what your difference will be in your amortization of it as far as savings of it. Because there is, for the amount of money that we're borrowing, there is a significant difference in the interest rates going to what they're going to be going to here in the near future. You're not gonna borrow this money for 1.5% or 2%, you're gonna borrow this money for quite a little bit more. So this is gonna be an important discussion. because you're gonna keep from saddling the township from 30 years, and you could use, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars that could cost you difference between 30 years and 20 years, and we're talking about $4.5 million. The world of finance is changing abruptly right now.
It is.
Due to the world events and everything, everybody knows that, so it's stable, why would we do it? But, yeah, so it was a good conversation. It was eye-awakening how this was gonna work. I'm gonna be first, I'm gonna speak and say something, I don't mean to get it on your thunder. but
No.
This thing is different because than what even I anticipated. We talked before about who was gonna hang on to the money, how we're gonna get the money, and how we're gonna pay for this state revolving fund, since it's done by the authority, and that's the key word here. The authority is running the revolving fund. We're just gonna pay the bill, shut it off, and the bill money's gonna go there. We don't have no say in it. Basically, that's what it comes down to, because it's the authority, and the money will get, we won't even have the money here. The money will get, the draws will come from the state revolving fund, and it'll go straight to the authority on behalf of that township. And actually, there's only, when you get right down to it, when we talk about this today, there's only 2 municipalities that's gonna be in the state revolving fund, because we're the only 2 that's got any money in the game. That would be Wood Township and Bath Township, because the other 2, not to say that they're not important, but they're not. They don't have, they're gonna pay cash for theirs, because theirs is very insignificant compared to ours, and so it won't count. So the idea of making any money on their bonds, and we talked about all that, making money, we're not gonna hold it. If we do hold it, it'd be a very short period of time to transferring from one municipality to the other. It was a good meeting.
It was.
It was a good informational thing, and it's interesting how the state can manipulate money.
Baker Tilly used to be known as Umlaw and Associates, so we've worked
Yes.
with this group. They've just changed LLCs, as Miles would have said.
That's a much better name.
So on to some better news. Greg Welch, there was a retirement party for him yesterday at the Legion. A wonderful officer and a wonderful family, and they were celebrating the fact that he is going to be, I think he was holding a coffee cup and that said, no more tension, just pension. So his family is happy that he is retired safely, and he was a good officer to us for many, many years, and so we were happy to take part in that celebration with him. And then on the flip side of that, we received the resignation of one of our new hires today in the police department, effective immediately, and he will be returning to employment at the county. So unfortunately, we just went through the hiring process and got 2 people, and now we will have to return to the hiring process to find a replacement for one of those people. Colin Recker.
Is there any learnings for what we could do differently in the process next time?
I think that the changes at the county with the retirement and the new appointments may have facilitated this change. So I'm not sure that there's anything that we could have done. It was just I think he had been there and wanted to return there, especially with the changes in leadership. So.
Okay.
I think there are things that we can do to, not for retention, but for recruitment.
Yes, and I spoke with Chief Lindenmuller, and I know you've had that conversation with him. So, but we will be looking at that because the next 2 schools that are coming out of the word's escaping me. The academy. Thank you. Words are those they're sponsored and they're already taken. So we're going to have to get very creative in the way that we approach hiring in the future, because young people are being sponsored by communities and they're being snatched up even before they are qualified. So yeah.
Can we do that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. A lot of times, if you sponsor them, you can ask that they stay with you for 3 years, or they have to pay the money back if they leave. So there are creative ways that we can get new and young people. But At the time we were hiring, I think there were like 1,200 other agencies in the state that were hiring at the same time. So we're always in competition with, DeWitt has postings currently, the DeWitt Township. So we're all playing that game and we're all competing against each other right now. So.
Yeah, I mean, the data around hiring for everything in the state is real rough right now. So if you're looking for some sort of movement from this board, I'd say come and ask us, because we should take these stands now rather than wait, because it's not going to get better.
The chief and I will do that. We'll have that conversation and probably be before you soon looking to do something of that nature. Any questions?
Any other questions? For Superintendent?
Could you give us a 20-second update on the Park Lake Trail?
So the Park Lake Trail, I believe that, forgive me, Supervisor, if I get this wrong. I believe you requested a meeting with the Road Commission to discuss the end of Webster Road, the private end of Webster Road, and I was on vacation. So I think that that's going to be rescheduled at a time.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm not gonna be there. You can be there.
Oh, okay.
No, the only reason for that being the fact that it became like this huge issue where it really didn't need to be a huge issue. It was
Okay.
just taking a sign out.
Okay,
And all of a sudden it became like overwhelming.
okay,
And so it was like, no,
okay.
I'm not gonna deal with that. All I want to do is take the sign out, which
Okay.
is what should be done.
Okay,
But
I wasn't aware of that. Okay.
So did the meeting happen, or is it
No,
still happening?
No,
it
they,
never happened.
no, they did not happen.
So no meeting.
So
Okay.
I'm sorry, I thought it was gonna be rescheduled. So,
Nope.
But I will make, arrangements with them, knowing that now, to have that discussion and see what needs to occur. And hopefully it can be as easy as just removing some things, but, okay. And then I have not yet received a report from the, environmental study. I anticipate that I was told that when that happened, it would take up to a month for that to occur. So I'm still waiting on that, to be able to bring that back to the board.
Do you have a contract in place, or is?
Yes, they've undertook the work, while I was gone in Arizona. Ms. Reeves and, Ms. Botke went out and assisted with, an on-site walk of the property, and with the firm. And Park Lake
Trail.
Yep,
The trail.
yep.
I know
So
that's
those findings will come back to you as a group, and you'll determine how we move forward with that. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you for reminding me of that.
All right, is there anything? All right, so our next move is public comment 2. Number 16. None? Well,
I made
next-
mine. Thank you.
She does.
Oh,
That's why she come back.
she's allowed to speak a second time.
Okay. There was quite a lot that came up, and I appreciate the discussion very much. Number one, I still can't hear you. I can't hear you. Maybe put the microphones towards your face. Any old thing. But first of all, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. Mr. Wiswasser, I am sorry to hear about your father. My condolences to you and your family.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to jump around here a little bit, and I'm a little bit scattered because the way it progressed throughout the meeting, some of my concerns came up, and not exactly in order. So I was glad to hear that you weren't going to go ahead with another, I want to say 1%, but I know that's incorrect, of the police and fire millage. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the really thoughtful discussion that you all had on that. And like I said, it doesn't have to what Ray said, Mr. Kotke, it doesn't have anything to do with the police and fire board. They are beloved to all of us, and it just has to do with taxes themselves. It's just not affordable. Myself and those others that live on a fixed income, you know, where you can allot a certain amount of money each month to these things, that's all just been blown out of the water for, you know, between groceries and taxes and the power bill. I won't expound anymore. The Park Lake Apartments, I had the map of 2 Park Lake apartments that we're going to go in to, from what I can see from driving down the road, is the only green space, the only lawn that these folks have to play on, their children, their pets, etc. And the fact that I'm not sure how the language goes, and I don't really understand it. But I do know that the 2 that were proposed from the Planning Commission that I could find was 2 buildings, and they were going to go from where the apartments are now all the way up to where the sidewalk runs, with no lawn, no green space whatsoever. And so I have concerns as a member of that neighborhood, you know, how much that will bring property value down, which is kind of strange because I'm talking about taxes and property value. But I guess just as an eyesore, I would hate to see it. I did want to mention though, I do think that the Planning Commission does a really good job at what they do as a board of people that are not paid. I think they do a fantastic job, but I guess I just would like to know what your vision is for that area, what the actual rules and regulations are for that area and for that piece of property. And I think I hopefully covered everything that I brought up earlier. Does anybody have any questions or comments for me? All right.
Good. Thanks, Meg.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else that? Oh, you're good. All right. Then it looks like board member comments.
Okay, I'll start.
Start.
First thing I want to say is Treasurer Wiswasser, I appreciate you taking time with everything going on in your personal life to attend the board meeting. Sorry for your loss, and thank you for being present to help inform our conversation. I want to thank Meg and Ray and Will White for making public comments. It's incredibly helpful for us to hear what you're thinking. Related to one comment that you made earlier that you didn't bring up the second time in terms of open meetings, one thing that I would ask that we do at our next meeting is to bring up the technology proposal. What I think would make a lot of sense is to break apart the conversation into 2 decisions. One decision is we need to improve our technology so that people can hear us online. Let's get that done.
Yes.
I think we can make a vote on that and do that, and then let's have a separate conversation about how can we structure a policy and rules around opening up access to individuals. And I think we can do that. I think there's communities that do that in a way that can be accommodating for those who need it, while also minimizing the negative parts of opening meetings. So I hope we can address that so that we can get there in a way where we have agreement. Beyond that, thank you.
I'm all set. Thanks for coming, folks. Sit for the whole meeting.
Thank you, Jason, and everybody for the comments of passing of my father. For what it's worth, the family, we met on Sunday afternoon and we made the decision. And in today's world, we have a traditional funeral, which is not normal in today's world, but we're having one anyhow. And we've decided in memorial for replacement of flowers or anything like that, that people would like to take and donate to my dad and honor my dad. We want the funds to go to the Township Public Safety Fund, police and fire departments. And he was a strong supporter of public safety, community service, as well as all the family members had dated back for many, many years. Thank you very much for your kind words.
I only have one question.
Yes.
When you donate to the police and fire, is that going to a special fund?
It's restricted money, and it'll go into them funds, and it'll get split between the two.
Okay.
I have to know a little bit about where.
I know.
I actually had 3 phone calls today about that. People want to know how they did
Yeah.
that and where the money was gonna go. But
I wondered that.
typically it gets split between the two, and as far as the cost of whatever they choose to spend.
When I read that as part of the obituary, it brought to mind the story you told me about your dad going and fixing fire trucks.
Oh,
You didn't
yeah.
like to tag along.
They used to have to go along with him. At that time, the fire station was downtown Bath, and there was a severe level right next to your building there, and hardware there. And I used to scare me as a little kid in there. I used to ask my dad, I said, could he be in to work on a fire truck? And I'd say, you know, what happens, Dad, if there's a fire? He says, run to the back of the building. I remember that.
My only comment would be thank you ever so much for being here. And I also wanted to thank the basketball team for coming and spending some time with us. And we did have some very interesting looking topics of water, which was very nice. And it was good to see who's who. I liked that. That was something that, for me, that worked out well. And I, of course, talked to you earlier.
Yes.
Say the same kind of
Thank
thing. That's tough.
It's part of life.
It is part of life. I'm an orphan, so
Yep.
yours is coming, but it's okay. You'll live through it. It'll work. Brenda. Oh,
I just wanted to thank the trustees for bringing all this information and having a great conversation about the millage and stuff tonight. It was really good. I thought it went really well.
For people that were interested in the Taco Bell, they have broke ground.
Yes.
And it's, so you'll probably be able to buy a taco in 2 months, the way they go. At the end of the road that goes down around the lake, we're trimming some dead trees down there. And I would like to, outer drive, and I would like to quell the rumors that is part of the walk around the lake, because I know I've heard it from a couple people, and it'll be on the internet probably tomorrow. And Steve, I think about your family a lot. That's all.
Thank you.
few quick items. At the next meeting, and I'll have a memo in this, in the packet for this, but on behalf of the Planning Commission, I'll be asking this board to make some, not decisions, but some, raise your voice around the marijuana issue. Is this board in the same place the previous board was in when we built the ordinances that require spacing and location differences around the township and daycares and schools? That is jamming up the Planning Commission in a couple of different ways in our planning department. So rather than trying to put the square peg in the round hole, perhaps the feeling of the board has changed and we don't need to do that anymore. So I'll be asking you all to think about that. You'll get a memo to have some time to be able to mull it over. So know that that's coming. I hope that based on our discussion today that the fire department hiring is going to move forward. I think from the murmurings we heard on the board that we are interested in moving that forward and have put that into the budget per the request of the chief. So hopefully that's the case. I also heard that yesterday Michigan's oldest resident, whose name was Irene Dunham, passed away. She was 114 years old. She's also a Bath School bombing survivor. So I want to send a shout out to her family and sorry for the passing, and glad she was able to live a really nice long life after such a tragedy. And then Steve, my heart goes out to you. I know that kids get a lot of stuff from their parents, and you have honesty and you have directness and you have a sense of service that no doubt comes from your dad. I never knew him, but I can see him in you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I move the main meeting adjourned.
Second?
Yes, we'll vote.
No unanimous consent, we'll take a vote.
Mr. Rosecrans?
Yes.
Mr. Fields-Bliss?
Yes.
Mr. Almarigi? Mr. Benzi?
No.
Mr. Wisswasser? Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Ms. Bowman-Chandler, yes.
All right.
It was close.
5 minutes left. We can deal with it.
I love your t-shirts. She said last time you were wearing a SpongeBob.